Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is here. Hello, David Reed.
Ready to get another week started?
Yes, sir. Now, Reed, in one of your previous stops, I think you'll remember that years and years and years ago, the big Vandy baseball debate, the big Vandy baseball topic, if you really wanted to go there, and your show at the time did, Chad and Hutton and Kaharski, and our show, Jared and the GM, we went there. The real story and I like Vandy baseball, and I went to Vandy baseball camp as a kid, but kind of the story around Vandy baseball was Vandy baseball is great. We all know it. But does anybody really care?
That was the question. That was the conversation.
That was it felt like every spring, Vanderbilt, number 1 in the country, number 3 in the country. They've got the first player that's going to be drafted, the 5th player that's going to be drafted, the 7th player that's going to be drafted. Does anybody care? And that would sound so disrespectful if, again, it wasn't really a valid topic. And unfortunately, it was. Vandy baseball, they packed them in at Hawkins Field. But outside of that, what was the desire for coverage? Then all of a sudden, Tennessee got good. And Vanderbilt fans hated it. Because Vandy baseball fans, that was their thing. And Tennessee was their biggest rival. And it's okay that Tennessee traditionally beats us in football. And it's okay that they beat us, and again, I'm talking if you're a Vanderbilt fan, more times than not in basketball, but baseball, that's our thing. And Tennessee over the last 5 years, slowly but surely, was starting to take it. And last year, I felt like they took it. And college baseball in this city and this state and everything else has never mattered more. Gentry Estes at the Tennessean told me that the one thing that he noticed in the columns he wrote was the amount of Tennessee fans that now were reading his Vandy baseball columns and the Vandy fans that were now reading his Tennessee baseball column. So I want to tip my cap, if I may, to Tim Corbin over at Vanderbilt. Because Vandy baseball swept Kentucky in dramatic fashion over the weekend. 2 walk-off homers, one on Thursday night, one on Friday night, and they got the win on Saturday. They don't play again until Thursday, as you heard in Reed's update in the SEC tournament. And regardless of what they do, it seems almost certain that Vanderbilt is going to get a top 8 seed and thus host every game at Hawkins Field until they get to Omaha. As of right now, D1 Baseball projects Vanderbilt as the number 3 overall seed in the tournament. Now, they also project Louisville being the number 2 seed in that regional. And I got to tell you, just like a couple years ago when my buddy was the first base coach for Xavier, and I was at Hawkins Field rooting for Xavier, I will, if Louisville's here, be rooting for the Cardinals. But that's not the story. This is the story. This time last year, I did not think that Tim Corbin had it in him to have Vandy in the position they're in today. To be frank with you, I thought the game, with all the changes that have come to college baseball, again, I don't think when to hit and run had really changed with Tim Corbin. I don't think when to go to the bullpen had really changed with Tim Corbin. But NIL, the transfer portal, everything else with the changes in college baseball, the investment that the rest of the SEC was making, I thought it had passed him by. Last year, they played in a regional at Clemson, and they absolutely got their asses handed to them, and Tennessee won the national title. And I thought to myself, this is going to get ugly for Vandy baseball. Again, baseball was their thing. Even though Tennessee didn't care about it, wasn't very good at it, Vandy baseball, that was their thing. Whether it was David Price or Jeremy Sowers or Mike Minor or Pedro Alvarez or Dominic De La Osa or Sonny Gray and the list, you can just go down the list, Tony Kemp, etc. Didn't matter. That was their thing. Didn't matter that Tennessee wasn't very good, but now Tennessee was great and Vandy was falling off the map. I figured the Vols with Tony Vitello, that they were only going to get bigger and badder and at some point deliver the Vandy boys a knockout blow that put them in a place that they didn't want to be. When Tennessee won the national title last year, at least Vandy could say, hey, we have too. But it wasn't going in the direction that anybody who was a Vanderbilt fan wanted to see it go. And so, again, the new game, NIL, transfer portal, fans' money, buying players. Tony Vitello was the cool coach. Now he's getting the kids drafted. Now they're the ones that are all over social media and getting these big NIL deals. And Vandy still had a little of that old school Vandy in them where, you know, they still didn't think their farts smelled so badly that they needed to pay for players. And I figured this is going to get bad. Again, Tim Corbin's starting to lose his grip on the rope of college baseball. Tennessee in the game of tug of war is starting to pull it in the other direction. And nope, not Tim Corbin. Tim Corbin hit the portal. Vanderbilt has NIL money. And the Commodores are absolutely rolling. 2 out of 3 in Knoxville versus the defending champions, followed by a sweep against Kentucky. And I had to think to myself, because I never claimed that Tim Corbin wasn't a great coach. Tim Corbin's always a great coach. See, I remember Vandy baseball before Tim Corbin got there. No disrespect to Roy Mewburn, who was the coach before Tim Corbin. They were irrelevant in baseball. And Tim Corbin, in about 4 years, built that thing into a legitimate national title contender type program. Now, I mean, I can go all the way back to Ryan Mullins and Warner Jones when Tim Corbin got this started. But how many great coaches in college sports have we seen that just eventually they can't keep up? The game has passed them by. And it's not even just college sports, but it's sports in general. Tom Landry at the end in Dallas was 3-13 and got fired. Bill Belichick was a total train wreck at the end of New England. And then the guys like Nick Saban and Coach K, they've just said, screw it. I don't want to do this anymore. The game's not headed in the direction that I want it to be, so I'm out. And I wonder, can you teach an old dog new tricks? And no disrespect to Tim Corbin, but he ain't young. And so I wondered, could you teach the old dog new tricks? The game has changed. The mindset, I believe, of the generation has changed. I think the kids today are 1,000 times softer than my generation. And when we were coming up, all we were told by everybody older than us was how soft we were. And so I'm not apologizing today to Tim Corbin because I don't think I owe him an apology. Because at this time last year, Vanderbilt was facing a crisis point. Vandy made it to the College World Series final in 2021. And 2021 wasn't that long ago. But the team they lost to, Mississippi State, who won the national title, fired their coach in the middle of this season. So that doesn't last forever. A success, when you're a coach, when you're a player, when you're actively in it, only exists for the moment that you're experiencing the success, and then it's on to the next. That's why Tom Brady used to always say, what's my favorite ring? The next one. So when it comes to Tim Corbin, and again, I have a lot of respect for Tim Corbin, and I think Tim Corbin is the greatest coach in the history of Vanderbilt. I didn't think he could do this. With the SEC paying more attention than they ever had to college baseball, and I think the SEC network and the TV money and everything else is kind of all added up to everybody is all in that conference. With everybody else wanting to play the same game. And again, the Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt detractors will tell you that Vanderbilt exploited a rule as far as scholarships were concerned. Well, that doesn't matter anymore because now what matters is how much are you paying the players. So with all of that gone, and with Tennessee down the road in Knoxville, big, bad UT. I heard Willie talking about the difference, and he was trying to be very Willie-donically, politically correct in how he said this. I will tell you exactly how it is. Vanderbilt and Tennessee, they're like oil and water, and I'll tell you why. Because one group, Vanderbilt, thinks their success is grandfathered in, baked in, and they think their farts don't smell. And Tennessee is rude and obnoxious, and they've had success for all of 20 seconds, and they think they're God's gift to college baseball. And just like Vandy thinks their farts don't stink, UT thinks they can fart in your face. That is the difference between the two. And that's why, again, they don't like each other. But it's also because they respect one another because of how much they've been winning. I, like these other coaches that have struggled to put the toothpaste back in the tube, like some of these other coaches who have struggled in the past, I didn't think Tim Corbin had it in him. And I have to give Tim Corbin credit because Tim Corbin, to his credit, to Vandy's credit, to all of that, Tim Corbin has, for lack of a better term, they have brought themselves back. And I have to give credit where credit is due. So Vandy baseball, again, the war is not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's only beginning. People like me are only starting to pay attention now. But I do have to give credit where credit is due. And that credit undoubtedly goes to Tim Corbin because I didn't think this was possible. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We're starting on a little college baseball. What do you think? 615-737-1025. And then I got to ask, because this time last year, I thought Vandy was dead and gone, and I thought UT was on their way. What the hell's happened to UT? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
The 1-2. That one is spun on. This one is driven. This is deep to left field, and it is gone. He did it again. Holcomb did it again. Vandy wins it. A walk-off 3-run bomb by Brendan Holcomb. This kid has got magic in that right-handed swing. Oh, goodness. Final score, 8-7. The Doors beat Kentucky. The 1-2. That's spun on. This one is lifted to left field. This one is back. It is gone. They did it again. How many times can these guys do it? Oh, goodness. It's back-to-back walk-off home runs for the Doors. Holcomb yesterday. The senior. Fastine. Liftoff. The Doors win it 9-8. This team is special.
Vandy baseball, red freaking hot. That's Andrew Allegretto on the Vanderbilt Sports Network. You can hear that right here. 102.5 the game for the SEC tournament and all the NCAA tournament games. And I do believe we're working through the details, but we plan on being out at Hawkins Field for the start of the regional in a couple of weeks. I think Vanderbilt could lose on Thursday night and still be hosting a regional. I think it is set in stone. They are the number 3 seed in the projections according to D1 baseball. Then there's the other side of it. There's Tennessee. And I truly believe, when it came to just being honest, I felt like when it came to where these two programs were, Tennessee had passed Vandy. And that this wasn't going to be, and this was just my opinion, this wasn't going to be a back and forth kind of thing. This wasn't going to be okay, this year's Vandy's year, next year's UT's year, then Vandy loads up. That I didn't think that this was going to be your traditional back and forth rivalry. I thought it was Vandy was up here for a while, and then UT met them, and UT passed them. Now, Vandy still had 2 national titles, but one of those was over a decade ago. And the game had changed, and all of the kind of favorable elements in today's game, I thought favored UT. So I didn't think that this was going to be just one year UT's good, then the next year. As of right now, according to D1 baseball, the field of 64, the projections for the NCAA tournament, Vanderbilt is the number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament behind Arkansas and Texas, who are 1 and 2. If the NCAA tournament were being held today, according to D1 baseball, UT would have to go to Atlanta and play Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech is the 16th seed, which means that UT would be the top number 2 seed. So there's still a chance if UT does well in the SEC tournament that UT can host a regional. But what happened? What happened to Tennessee baseball? And what has happened to the Tennessee baseball fans? Did they stop caring about college baseball because they won the national title? Or have they stopped caring because they look at this year's team, and for whatever reason, this year's team seems to lose 2 out of 3 in every SEC series they play, and they don't look like they have a shot at winning the title like they have had the last couple of years. Tennessee was ranked number 4 in the preseason. Somebody, because I said, what has happened to UT baseball? And somebody tweeted and they said, did you think the Vols would go back-to-back? What happened to UT? We won the Natty last year. I'm like, no, but I thought you'd host a regional. Tennessee was preseason ranked number 4. They have one of the best, if not the best coaches in college baseball. The number 1 team's coach lost to you last year in the College World Series final. So, yeah, I thought UT would be better than 17th. And then I got to talk about the fans. Like, what happened to the fans? Now, some of this might have been the ESPN microphone last Sunday when I watched Vandy play Tennessee. We were in Costa Rica. Girlfriend went to go get a massage, and I watched Vandy versus UT. And this was before the rain delay. And I didn't hear a fired up, excited crowd like I would have expected for the rubber game of a 3-game series. Not a Tennessee crowd, not a Lindsey Nelson Stadium crowd. They just kind of felt like they were there. And that would have never happened with UT football. UT football wins the national title, and then the next year is like, oh, yeah, Georgia, we're not going to care that much. No. Tennessee wins the national title in football, goes 8-4 the next year, and loses to Florida, and loses to Georgia, and loses to Alabama. There's no way the Tennessee fans would be okay with that. So what has happened to UT baseball? And I remember a couple years ago when Tennessee fans had to learn how this all went down. The 2022 team, the one that Robbie and Joe were talking about on the radio, and they were saying, UT or the field in the NCAA tournament. And I thought, what? I'm like, do you people have any idea how this sport works? Do you people have any idea how hard it is to win in baseball? And when Tennessee got beat in the Super Regionals by Notre Dame, I said this at the time. I said, Vandy fans know what Tennessee's going through because Vandy had to go through that before they could get to Omaha and before they could win the national title. They had to go through that when they lost at home as the number one team with David Price. And so Tennessee fans have become educated in baseball to an extent. And I give them credit because it does feel like Tennessee fans have supported over the last couple of years until apparently now the baseball program with the same veracity that they support the other sports, albeit not at the same level as football. But again, they care. And then I watched that Vandy game and I just saw a lifeless UT Vol team out there on Sunday against Vandy in the rubber game. And I just didn't hear a crowd that was all that energized. Again, maybe it was ESPN's microphones. I don't know. But if you're Tennessee and you get on your knees for Tony Vitello the way that you guys get on your knees for Tony Vitello, you can't just win one national title and be happy with it. You've got to get back in there. And I'm not saying Tennessee can't make a run, but man, it feels like they lose 2 out of 3 every SEC series. And to not host a regional, to not be one of the top 16 teams in the country the year after winning the national title, with the money they're spending on that team, that's not right. So Vandy, everything seems to be going in their direction. And UT, it feels like they're just trying to take on water on the boat right now. And I didn't think Tennessee was headed. I thought Tennessee was here to stay. 615-737-1025. Your phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris says last year's team was arguably one of the best ever. One of the best ever. It wasn't one of the best UT teams ever. Again, the 2022 Tennessee team, that was one of the best teams I've ever seen. That's like the best Titans team I've ever seen. Was not the 99 team that went to the Super Bowl. It was the team the year later in 2000 that lost in the divisional round of the playoffs at home to Baltimore. I've always said, of the 26 years or whatever we've had of Titan football, the 99 Super Bowl team, in my opinion, was the third best team. 2000 was number 1. 2002 lost the AFC title game to the Raiders. I think that's the number 2 team. Super Bowl team number 3. I don't think last year's UT team was the best UT team they've ever had. I think the 2022 team. But they had to learn their lesson just about how hard winning a baseball tournament can be. Now, they lose 2 out of 3 every weekend. One texter says last year UT was able to out-hit their lack of pitching and defense. Also seems as though the youth on the roster has revealed itself without the veteran presence on the field and in the dugout to calm things down during high-stress situations. I will say this. I think Tony Vitello is a great coach. I do think that sometimes, like, they take on his personality, and that's sometimes a bad thing. And I'm not saying that Corbin's a better coach than Vitello or Vitello's a better coach than Corbin, but if you take on the personality of Tim Corbin, you're not going to have those highs and lows the way it does feel like Tennessee baseball has. I was surprised Tennessee baseball did not come with a serious counterpunch in Game 3 of that Vandy series. One texter says, Tennessee doesn't have the depth in the dugout, though Boyle is a major leaguer. I mean, isn't he going like number 1 overall? Isn't that, Reed, you know this isn't the Friday night starter for UT? Isn't he supposed to go number 1 overall?
No, I have no idea. I don't care about college baseball anymore.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Even as a UT fan?
Yeah, I know.
Did you care last year?
Not really. I mean, if you're a Vols fan, you want to see them succeed in everything, like swimming, cricket, whatever. I mean, whatever team they have, I want to see them succeed. I'm not motivated to the fact where I'm going to act like I care about college baseball just because my team won a national championship. I'm not going to be that person. Did you care
last year? Did you care before that?
I haven't cared about college baseball probably since the Gorilla Ball era ended. That was fun to me. I was younger. I wanted to play college baseball back then. I really haven't cared about college baseball since then.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised by that. I just viewed Reed as like the typical UT fan who never cared about college baseball. UT got good, then cared.
No, I've never been to a game at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. I've actually never seen. The only time I ever seen them play in person was at Hawkins Field, probably 15 years ago.
Unbelievable. I'm actually kind of shocked by that. Again, where are the UT fans? Again,
and maybe that crowd a couple of weeks ago didn't sound the same to you because there wasn't someone constantly whistling during the game. Maybe that was why.
You know, I truly hate that. I will forever go down as someone. I hate the Vandy Whistler. I know it's a tradition and that's your business and that's everything else, but and
he's otherwise a really good guy, but that's the most annoying thing in college sports.
I couldn't tell you anything about him other than he drives the crap out of me when I'm trying to watch a Vandy game. And there will be a lot more of him because Vandy will be hosting at least, I believe Vanderbilt's got a top 8 seed in the bag. I think they're hosting both the regional and the supers at Hawkins Field. And with UT, we'll see how they do in the SEC tournament. But I haven't seen anything that would give me any hope to think that Tennessee's going to be hosting at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. And I thought UT was going to, follow up. I thought that they had that in them. I thought Vitello had that in him. I guess I'm a little surprised. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. So the big story that everybody got caught up in last week when the schedule dropped for the Titans was the fact that the Titans had no primetime games. And I really dug into that because I predicted they were going to have no primetime games. And Titan crybaby Twitter out there saying, you hate the Titans, go cover another team. And then I was vindicated. There's one thing about the schedule that I feel like I haven't heard anybody else say. I do want to get to that. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 the game.
I'll tell the Titans and I'll tell the Saints and I'll tell all the teams what we tell everybody. Nobody knows anything. It's sports. It's the NFL. It's the beauty of the league, right? There's 4 or 5 playoff teams every year that finish last in their division the previous season. There's always something like that. So you've got every chance to play yourself into bigger television windows, whether we flex you to a Sunday night or a Monday night, or we expand the footprint of your game on CBS on Sunday at 1 o'clock. You can get to 60, 70% of the country on a Sunday afternoon if yours is the game that matters. So they've got every opportunity, just like every other team, to play their way into bigger windows. And look, I hope they surprise us every year. Somebody surprises us.
Hey, Mike North, the VP of broadcasting for the NFL, says, hey, maybe you can get into the top window at 1 o'clock in a game this year and 60% of the country can watch you play, Titans. Maybe. Again, I've looked at the schedule. I don't see a Jim Nantz and Tony Romo game. I don't see a Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady game. Now, back when the Titans used to win, they used to get Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. Not anymore. But while the primetime angle was the thing that people made a massive deal about last week, there was one thing, and granted, I was out of the country when the schedule dropped, but there was one thing that I didn't see a lot of people pick up on, which is I think the Titans got an incredibly advantageous schedule from the NFL. Now, I see when people put out there things like, oh, here's the strength of schedule rankings. And, well, you knew all of that before the schedule came out because you knew who the opponents were. When you play the opponents, doesn't necessarily change what the overall strength of schedule is until they start playing and somebody who's not good or wasn't good last year is good next year. But think about this. When it comes to the NFL schedule, what do teams and coaches absolutely hate? And the answer is things that break with the routine. Bill Parcells owned a racehorse, and it was named Sunday at 1. Why? Because Bill Parcells liked to play Sunday at 1. Primetime games are good for fans to make themselves feel important in the eyes of the league, in the eyes of the country. But as far as the teams themselves are concerned, they don't really like it. They like playing at noon. They like waking up and having the same routine and getting right to the stadium and playing the game and getting on the plane and getting home at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. That's what they like. They don't like being the Seattle Seahawks and playing a Sunday night football game at Miami and flying back, getting home at 6 in the morning. It's really worse the other way. When, for instance, the Jets started the year last year at San Francisco on a Monday night and had to fly all the way back across the country after the game and got home at like 8 a.m. and then had to fly again here. You don't have any of those problems. It's just the routine of noon kicks. The Titans bye week comes in the middle of the season, week 9, which is so much better than an early bye around week 4 or 5 when you really don't have that many injuries that everybody else has. You haven't really gotten in the rhythm of the season yet. You don't need a break at that point. Or week 13 around Thanksgiving when your team is just trying to get to its bye week. They've got a bye in the middle of the season. There are no international games on the schedule, so there's no international travel. There's only one trip to the West Coast. That's San Francisco. And that's not, again, a San Francisco on a Monday night and then fly back to Nashville and then have to fly to Seattle. And then no, there's none of that. There's a one trip to the West Coast. If they play Seattle, for instance, at home, that's a noon kickoff. That's great for the Titans. Normally, when you play teams from the West Coast, you're going to play those games at 3:30 because they want their TV audience to have that game on at noon. But Seattle's going to kick off at 10 o'clock Pacific time. That's great. The Titans also only have the potential for one bad weather game. That is December 7th at Cleveland. again, a lot of this is set up based upon who you play. And the NFL does not control who you play. The outcome of the season that was the previous season is what determines who you play or which divisions you're going to play or things like that. But teams at the NFL can absolutely screw you. They can absolutely put that San Francisco game on the road to follow it up with a Thursday nighter against Kansas City. They're not doing that to you. And then the other thing about the schedule, when I looked at it, is as it stands now, there's really not a run of teams that we would expect to be good on that schedule. As in, there's no, oh my God, did you see this November? At Buffalo, Houston at home, at Kansas City, at the Rams. There isn't any kind of murderer's row like that. In fact, there's a stretch of games that, quite frankly, I think the Titans could win. They could win at Arizona. I have no respect for Arizona. They could win at Arizona. They could win at Las Vegas, who, again, will be favored. And with Geno Smith at quarterback, I would take Vegas over your team. Pete Carroll over Brian Callahan, but I don't think it's crazy to think the Titans could win at Las Vegas. New England at home, at Indianapolis. I mean, look, if things go their way, if Cam Ward is that dude, if he's what you all think he is, if he's the Messiah, if he's, maybe that puts you over the top. If Brian Callahan actually can coach, again, you could run through that stretch, Arizona, Vegas, New England, Indy. Win 4 in a row, start the season off 2-2. Now you're 6-2. And now everyone's like, wow, look at the Titans. Look at Cam Ward. And the confidence builds. So as much as the theme of the schedule when it comes to the Titans is, hey, no primetime games, disrespect. No Thursday night, no Monday night, no Sunday night, no Saturday NFL Network, none of it. Well, that's the headline. That doesn't really matter as far as winning and losing is concerned. One trip to the West Coast and no short weeks and no international travel and a bye week in the middle of the season and no murderer's row kind of run. That is actually a very advantageous NFL schedule. And so maybe instead of bitching about the lack of a primetime game, which if I was TV, I wouldn't put the Titans on either. Maybe embrace the fact that the league gave you a pretty good schedule. 615-737-1025. There's also something the Titans have never done, which PK wrote a story saying that the Titans might be more receptive to doing this now more than ever. And I can tell you the NFL will have zero, and I mean zero interest in this. We'll hit that next. And your phone, 615-737-1025. Tune in for the Indy 500 race on 1025 The Game this Sunday. Coverage begins at 10 a.m. and is brought to you by Twin Peaks, home of the 29-degree beer.
My takeaway is the Titans have 0 primetime games, 0. And I'd like to say I can't believe it, but I can completely believe it because this is not only a franchise that's routinely disrespected, that man is by far the most overlooked, underrepresented, disrespected number 1 overall pick quarterback in my lifetime. Yeah. Understand this. Cam Ward, who is big and strong and cool and friendly and professional and has a very interesting backstory, is getting nothing. You will not see him in prime time because he's the quarterback of the Titans. And I have comps for you here. I have comps. You might think, well, it's a rookie quarterback, a big deal. Last year, Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, 3 primetime games. And you might say, well, Chicago's a big media market. Okay. How about Bryce Young? He plays for Carolina. He got 2 primetime games as the number 1 overall pick quarterback. Go back a year before that even. Trevor Lawrence, media market 32 as the number 1 overall pick quarterback. He got a primetime game. And this Cam Ward is saying, why don't you love me? You can't even toss me the back end of a primetime doubleheader that starts at 10 a.m. Eastern and no one will watch anyway. Just give me a chance here. You can't just give me a charity Thursday night game. It's like, you literally don't remember the Titans. And I don't know what Cam Ward ever did to anybody to make him so unlikable, so uninteresting. We would rather give 10 primetime games to the Shedeur Sanders deal than 1 to Cam Ward, who was drafted 5,000 picks ahead of him. I want to see this guy, but apparently no one else does.
There you go. That was Kyle Brandt on NFL Network today talking about how could they? How dare they? The league-owned network that he's on is criticizing the league for how dare they not put Cam Ward in primetime. I do want to just push back on the argument a little bit, saying, Trevor Lawrence, he was the number 1 pick. Jacksonville's a small market. They got a primetime game. I believe the rule changed a year later that said that that not everybody had to have a Thursday night game. There used to be a rule that was everybody has a Thursday game and you can only have 1. Now, Dallas would have 2 because of Thanksgiving and everything else, but you only had to have 1 Thursday game. Everybody had to have 1. And if that were the case, then the Titans would be on NFL Network on Thursday Night Football, but Amazon Prime is paying about $1 gazillion, so they're going to give them better matchups. So they changed that rule. So that's why Trevor Lawrence played Cincinnati on NFL Network. And if you'll remember, that was the game where Urban Meyer stayed back, and the video of him at the bar in Columbus with his finger in the little butt seam of the girl's jeans, that was where that circulated around. So there's something that Titan fans, I think, want or think that people want that I'm just going to tell you is not going to happen. This was a PK story from May 5th. The headline was why the Titans may be more willing to do Hard Knocks than in the past. His theory being that Mike Borgonzi in Kansas City, they have experience with Patrick Mahomes doing the Netflix series, and Brian Callahan seems more amenable, which I think we can all agree with, to cameras being in the facility and cameras being on the practice field and the circus, I guess, that comes with Hard Knocks than, say, John Robinson and Mike Vrabel. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Titans may be last on the list as far as Hard Knocks is concerned. If the NFL, that has never had more broadcast windows, Sunday football, Saturday football, Friday football, Thursday football, Monday football. I don't know what day of the week that Thanksgiving is on, or excuse me, that I know what day of the week Thanksgiving is on, Thursday, but what day of the week Christmas is on. But last year was on a Wednesday and they had Wednesday football. And the Titans don't have 1 primetime game. Yeah, the NFL, whatever their research is, and I think the NFL takes this research seriously because this is their golden goose, which is their TV contracts. They are not putting the Titans on in any meaningful windows at all. They're going to put them on Hard Knocks. Here are the teams that are eligible for the training camp edition of Hard Knocks, which, by the way, I don't even like that much. I feel like Hard Knocks is kind of the same every year, where we're going to follow one star player, we're going to follow the first round draft pick, we're going to follow the coach, and then we're going to take one undrafted free agent Scarbini, and we're going to get everybody to care about Riley Bullock for a year. Here are the teams that are eligible for Hard Knocks. Arizona, boring. Atlanta, boring. Baltimore, I'd say more people would be interested in them. Carolina, Cincinnati. Although this is from PK's article, and I don't think Cincinnati is eligible because they did that division Hard Knocks, but I could be wrong. Denver, Green Bay, Houston, Indy, Kansas City, Miami, Minnesota, the Giants, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, San Fran, Seattle, and Washington. Yeah, they're going to sit there and say, we could put Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders on Hard Knocks, or the Titans, who we're not going to put on in primetime. And I don't know how Titan fans feel about this. Again, I enjoyed the offseason Hard Knocks that the Giants did 2 years ago because it kind of gave you a look as they were debating which players they wanted to sign in free agency, which players they wanted to draft. It showed the phone call between Joe Shane and Elliott Wolf, in which he kind of beat around the bush trying to get up to number 3 to take Drake May. You know, I enjoyed that more than I enjoy just, again, like Hard Knocks is. The move to the NFL is difficult for anybody, but especially for undrafted free agent out of Sacred Heart State, Devondre Johnson. And then it shows the coach, Devondre, get out. You're in the wrong spot. Get out. Oh, my goodness. That was Devondre Johnson's one snap of practice. Yeah, it's very hard to make the team when I only get one snap. And it's the same every year. There's a player like that every year. When I was in middle school, I watched the Dallas Cowboys on Hard Knocks. They had a wide receiver named Richmond Flowers. And I was like, yeah, go Richmond. And then he didn't make the team. And then there was a wide receiver, Devron Johnson. I wonder what Devron Johnson's up to now. Devron Johnson was an undrafted free agent. He made the team. He made the initial 53. Then he decided to celebrate by going and buying himself some jewelry. And then the next day they claimed somebody off waivers and cut him. I was into it then. That was 20 years ago. Like, I just, whatever. But they're not going to put you on TV. They'll put they'll put Atlanta on TV before you. They'll put Denver on TV before you. They'll put Miami on TV before you. Although Miami did do Hard Knocks in the season a couple of years ago, and I thought that was kind of boring. They'll do Minnesota before you with Kevin O'Connell and a new quarterback and everything else. They'll absolutely put the Giants on before you. They'll put Pittsburgh on before you. They'll put San Francisco. They'll absolutely put San Francisco on before you. And Seattle, Washington, Philly, they're going to put them all on. So you don't have to worry about Hard Knocks. However, that is concerned. 615-737-1025. So I have hammered the Titans over the years. And I'd like to say that oftentimes, even though some people think that I do it out of spite for the team that I grew up loving and still love to this day, that I've been proven right for the most part over the last couple of years. But there is one thing that the Titans absolutely constantly get hammered for. That everybody, they're not saying it, but they're saying it, is hammering them for now. And I don't think they deserve it. And specifically, I don't think Amy deserves it. We'll get to that next. Tillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So oftentimes people get mad at me. Jared, why do you have to rip on the Titans? Jared, you hate the Titans. Jared, I went to the first game. I went to the Super Bowl when I was 10 years old. I cried when they lost by a yard. My first true heartbreak was the loss to the Ravens in the 2000 divisional round playoff game. But yeah, I hate the Titans. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I have hammered the Titans over the last couple of years, but that's because the Titans have done a lot of stupid things over the last couple of years. And I've had quite the run lately with the fan base because what's happened is the Titans have made a bunch of bad decisions, and I hammer those decisions for being bad. And then as a group collectively, I feel like even the fans kind of feel the same way I do. And then because it's a decision the Titans made and they want it to work out, they all of a sudden turn from saying, what? At the beginning, to saying, yeah. For instance, Chad Brinker, when he got elevated into this Zara football operations position, I could not believe it. I go, what the hell has this guy done as Ran Carthon's lieutenant to be in charge of this football team? He's never been a general manager somewhere, never run a football team or even come close to it. And you all felt the same way. But after some time, you all have changed your tune, and I feel the same way I did then. Or how you guys all went from trade the pick, these QB stink, to Cam Ward is the guy. He's Mahomes, Jared. I don't do that. I have an opinion, and I stand by it until it gets proven right or wrong. If the Seahawks win 3 games this year, I'll say, well, I guess Sam Darnold was a one-hit wonder, but we'll see first. But there's one move that Amy Adams-Strunk gets absolutely hammered for. Even outside of Nashville, she just gets crushed for. And I believe it was the right decision. And that was the decision to fire Mike Vrabel. It came out when the schedule dropped that the Patriots are favorites in 11 of 17 games this upcoming season. How? What did the Patriots do to be favored in 11 of 17 games? Now, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles, where, hey, you play a bunch of bad teams, and so you're favored against Carolina by 3.5 points because Carolina sucks. You're favored against the Saints by 3 points because the Saints suck. You're favored by 3 points against the Falcons because nobody ever takes the Falcons seriously. But I'm going to tell you how the Patriots are favored in 11 games. The allure of the great Mike Vrabel. When the Titans fired the great Mike Vrabel, even though they had won 7 games in 2022, including a 7-game losing streak at the end of the year, when they had won 7 games in 2022 and 6 games in 2023, everybody around the country thought, how could they fire the great Mike Vrabel? And yet, I covered this team every day. And I knew that the Vrabel-Titans relationship had run its course. Now, look, I'll agree that the way they did it by firing Vrabel and elevating Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker was a bad idea. And the decision to hire Brian Callahan, we'll see, probably a bad idea. But that doesn't mean that the decision to move on from Vrabel was bad. And while I get it, Vrabel was a player and he's got a reputation and Vrabel's confident and Vrabel's got swagger to him. And Vrabel is a former coach of the year and he's not a bad coach. I have a hard time believing he's going to be Bill Belichick 2.0, who left the Browns, went to the Patriots, and won 6 Super Bowls. And if he is, I'll say, I didn't see this coming. Here's my assessment of Mike Vrabel. Again, the national media just drops their pants, unbuckles, whatever. Vrabel could lose 100 games in a row, and they would find a reason to blame everybody but Mike Vrabel for why Mike Vrabel has lost those 100 games in a row. Everybody talks about how Mike Vrabel didn't lose that Cincinnati playoff game because Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, which is true. But Ryan Tannehill had a bad season without Arthur Smith because Todd Downing was the offensive coordinator. And who hired Todd Downing? Mike Vrabel went for 2 against Cincinnati when he didn't have to. So here's how I feel about Vrabel. And this, I believe, is how most people should feel about Mike Vrabel. If my dad found $8 billion and bought an NFL team and said, son, what do you think of Vrabel as a coach? This would be my true and honest assessment. Number 1, I think Vrabel's a very good motivator, and he'll get the maximum effort and commitment out of the roster. So guys like Harold Landry up there in New England, they'll try their hardest for Vrabel. Number 2, Vrabel's very smart. He knows every rule in the rule book, and he's so dedicated that he will not get outworked by other coaches. That's number 2. Number 3, Vrabel's inexperience as a coach in the NFL. He had a handful of years coaching as an assistant coach for Bill O'Brien in Houston, and then immediately, again, because of the Patriot way, the confident swagger, the success as a player, Vrabel got elevated to head coach. He doesn't really have a depth of experience with other coaches to know who to hire on his coaching staff, which is a huge problem. Because everybody on Mike Vrabel's coaching staffs are either from Ohio State, where he coached, Houston, or they're some holdover from Matt LaFleur, who brought a handful of coaches with him when he became the offensive coordinator here. The good offensive coaches Vrabel's hired, like Arthur Smith, that was just a petty response to Matt LaFleur trying to bring Arthur Smith with him to Green Bay. And Vrabel does not know how to find coaching talent. And so when I look at that Patriot staff and I see Todd Downing and Jason Hodling and all these Vrabel guys, I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. That's the Vrabel coaching staff. And most importantly, Vrabel has not demonstrated to me to be able to do 2 things. 1, deal with star players in the NFL. 2, develop a quarterback. Do you know who the point of contact every single day with the players, no matter what, is on an NFL team? It's the head coach. I've heard Bill Polian say this, that a head coach can be more important than the general manager because the head coach is the one who touches the players every day. Do you know who the point of contact was directly with A.J. Brown when the Titans were negotiating a contract with him? It was Vrabel. It wasn't Robinson. Robinson was dealing with Torrey Dandy, and Robinson screwed up too. But the point of contact with A.J. was Vrabel. A.J. even went on record and said, Vrabel came to me and said, be patient about your contract. It'll get worked out. And then I cut off communication with everybody. When Mike Vrabel was here, his superstars were Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard. And again, Danico Autry, very mild-mannered guys. How would Vrabel have dealt with Randy Moss in his prime? I don't know. Again, you can blame Robinson or Amy or whoever you want for A.J. Brown, but Vrabel was the point of contact. And secondly, I don't know if Mike Vrabel has the ability to develop a young quarterback. And those 2 things, dealing with star players and developing a young quarterback, are the most important things if you're ever going to be good in the NFL. You can have a one-off where you take over a team that already has a veteran quarterback, that's got good pieces in place, that go on a run, and all of a sudden, like when Vrabel was the coach, they ended up in the AFC title game. You can do that. But again, to have sustained success, you're going to have to develop a quarterback at some point. I don't know if Vrabel can do that. To have success in the NFL, you're going to have to deal with star player personalities at some point, and not just Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill that will go along with whatever the coach says. At some point, you're going to draft somebody. If you're good, you're going to draft somebody who has an immense amount of talent, but wants things done a certain way. And you're going to have to figure out how to massage that. And some people couldn't. Dan Reeves couldn't with John Elway. Mike Shanahan could. Nick Sirianni, how many egos does he have on that team? And yet he's figured out a way. So, again, I think Vrabel's a good coach. I think he's a great motivator. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a hard worker. I think all of those things, and I think that he'll win some games. But 11 out of 17 were they're favored? Give me a break. What has Vrabel done? What has Vrabel's coaching staff done to make you think that Mike Vrabel is going to take the Patriots from the very bottom of the league? Because once again, yes, I know the Titans were the worst team at the first pick of the draft. The Patriots were worse than the Titans. They came here and got beat by Mason Rudolph. What have we seen from Vrabel? Again, objectively speaking, we saw Vrabel inherit a playoff team with a young core that was developing or already developed and having success in the NFL. And then he got lucky that Ryan Tannehill was the backup quarterback and was exactly what they needed, and they went on that run. But what have we seen out of Mike Vrabel that makes us think that he can take absolute dog doo-doo and win 11 out of 17 games, be favored 11 times? But again, everybody outside of Nashville thinks that the great Mike Vrabel can do no wrong. No matter how many games they lose, no matter what Andy Reid does to him in the AFC title game where he takes the air out of the football by running the ball, no matter what, it's the great Mike Vrabel. And I have a hard time buying that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Now, there is one thing about the great Mike Vrabel that I find insanely juicy about this upcoming season. And again, the Patriots are favored in 11 of these 17 games, I think in large part because a lot of these teams that they play, Cleveland, New Orleans, Carolina, the Raiders, the Jets twice, the Giants, they all stink, which could make for some serious drama. We'll get to that next. Stoneman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know, it's funny. I had pest control at my house for an issue today, and they're trying to sell me something that I think I might need. It's very expensive, but I just don't know if I trust it. Like, do I need to get other estimates? Do I need to? You don't have to do that with Hiller. And I, as a Hiller customer, I feel this weird kind of lack of certainty with the pest control that I know I have when it comes to plumbing, HVAC, or electrical in my home. Because there's only one person I trust. There's only one person I need to call. It's Hiller. Because most of the time when you've got an issue, you don't know what it'll cost, if it will get fixed correctly, or if someone's just trying to sell you something you don't need. You don't have to worry about that with Hiller. With Hiller, the price you're told is the price you'll actually pay, with no hidden fees and no surprises on the bill. So book online now the same way I do by visiting happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters, the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Hatfish Truck today.
We know the culture he's bringing. That's Mike Vrabel. And I'll tell you what, Christopher, you were hoping for it, and you got it.
Let's go.
Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator, and he is nothing short of exactly what the doctor ordered. And bringing McDaniels in is exactly what was needed.
It's a wonderful feeling. This year has given me a little bit of a different perspective on the game and, how much you enjoy it, you love it. But most importantly, the people that you enjoy doing the game with every day. And this place has such a special attraction to me, my family. It's home for me. And I was so blessed and fortunate to have an opportunity to come back into this organization and to work for Mike, who I've known for more than 20 years.
Josh McDaniels, that was a new series, a new mini series that is out on YouTube. It's an in-home production by the New England Patriots called Forged in Foxborough. And it is a behind the scenes of the offseason with Mike Vrabel. Episode 1, Building the Patriots. It is an hour and 13 minutes of pants-dropping crap that, again, I am surprised Vrabel did. Belichick would have never done that. Get more on Belichick later today. He would have never done that unless his girlfriend made him do it. But there is a true Patriots, circle fest going on there. Now, that being said, the Patriots, the vibes are immaculate. They are favored in 11 of 17 games. Their over-under is 8.5 wins. So basically, Vegas thinks that the New England Patriots, who, again, they added Harold Landry, Milton Williams, an injured Stephon Diggs. They drafted a left tackle with short arms. So the only reason that Vegas thinks the New England Patriots are going to be so much better this year is because of the great Mike Vrabel. And I'm not here to say yes or no. I would be surprised because I'm not sure that Vrabel knows how to develop a young quarterback. And that's what he's going to have to do. But let me say this. The one thing that I am on the fence about when it comes to Vrabel and it comes to Drake May and it comes to whether or not that's going to work is that he did hire Josh McDaniels to run the offense. Now, McDaniels' track record as both an offensive coordinator and as a head coach, and really the quarterback stuff outside of Tom Brady, is horrendous. I mean, just horrendous. He was the offensive coordinator for 1 year in St. Louis when I believe Steve Spagnuolo, who's the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, was the head coach in St. Louis. This is how far back this goes. He was the OC after he got fired in Denver, and I think they were ranked 32nd in the league. So when he doesn't have Tom Brady and 1 year of Mac Jones where they were actually pretty good, it's been a train wreck. Tom Brady, it's pretty good. But then you have to wonder, if I came in year 5, could I coach Tom Brady? But I do at least think there's a shot that they can do something with this young quarterback because it's not Vrabel and one of Vrabel's guys. McDaniels, even though they were in New England at the same time, McDaniels was never one of Vrabel's guys. That was a Robert Kraft hire. That was a, Mike, I want you to hire Josh McDaniels because I think McDaniels is such a good coach. Okay, fine. It wasn't Todd Downing. It wasn't Tim Kelly. If it had been one of those guys, I'd have said, there goes Vrabel with the buddy crew. And so he hired McDaniels. That's a real coach. And I'm like, okay, maybe it won't be a train wreck. Now he then hired Downing to be the receivers coach, who's, by the way, never coached receivers before, which tells you, again, like the mafia, Vrabel values loyalty more than he actually values whether or not you can do the job. But that's the one shot. If this were Downing as the offensive coordinator, if this were Kelly as the offensive coordinator, I'd say no shot. If Vrabel completely detached himself and hired Chip Kelly to be the OC or hired, somebody, I think, okay, well, Vrabel's just turned that side of the ball over to that guy, but I know he can't do it. Maybe they develop Drake May. But if it's anything like the way that they did things here, he has no shot for Drake May to have success. And that's a real thing. A defensive coach not being able to develop a young quarterback. And think about defensive coaches and traditionally how they win. How did Vrabel win when he was here? Ryan Tannehill, an already established NFL veteran who just goes in and does his job on that side of the ball. Dan Campbell. Now, he's an offensive coach, but he's more of a rah-rah guy than he is a philosophical guy. Jared Goff, already established. Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield. Again, already had been to the playoffs and won a playoff game in Cleveland. It's the Sean Paytons of the world, the offensive gurus that take the young quarterbacks and really develop them. So with Vrabel, that's the one thing where maybe McDaniels can develop the quarterback and he's got a shot, but unbelievable. 615-737-1025. One texter says, Jared, I know you know this, but the Patriots being favored is not because they think the Patriots will win 11 games. They are favored because the bookmakers are making sure that they make money and setting the Pats as favorites. The betting will fall correctly so that the books make more money than they pay out, so that the books are banking on the Patriots' reputation to make them money regardless of their actual talent. So I don't believe that. This time last year, I was reading a story. The Patriots were not favored in a single game. The Patriots lore is dead. Okay? Let's just call it how it is. The idea that the New England Patriots are some sort of proud brand that isn't tied to Tom Brady of yesteryear, it's dead. It's gone. This is about the coach. Washington, it's about the quarterback. Chicago, it's about the play calling genius. New England, it's about the great Mike Vrabel. That's what this is about. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll hit more of your phones. Plus, we're talking about the old coach of the Titans. What about the current coach of the Titans? And what about the current coach of the Titans when the current coach of the Titans meets the old coach of the Titans? I have a thought. We'll do it next. Someone to Company 1025 The Game.
one way to look at it is Vegas projected over-unders. According to those totals, it's the second easiest schedule in the league.
Okay.
The look-ahead lines, you're favored in 11 of your 17 games.
No kidding? Oh, I didn't know that.
After going 4-13.
You're favored in 11 games. Last year, you were favored in none.
Right.
So if you go do that, if it goes according to Hoyle, it goes according to what's expected. It's an 11-win season. Okay, so I don't think, and their over-under on DraftKings is 8.5. So I don't think that's unreasonable. And it's not, I think people get confused when you say, yeah, they should win 9-10 games. It's like you're commenting on the Patriots. I'm not. I'm commenting on the schedule.
Right, same.
And I'm also commenting on the coaching should be better. Drake May should be for God's sakes, people, if Vrabel's the coach you think he is, May is the quarterback you think he is, they keep drafting at the top of the draft, and they spent a bunch of money, and they have the second easiest schedule in the league. Anything less than 9 wins is a complete fail.
There you go. That was Mike Felger on 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston. Again, the over-under is 8.5, and they're talking about 9 wins. 9 wins for the wretched Patriots. 9 wins, 3 primetime games. The NFL, they've given you 0. They've given the Patriots 3 primetime games because the great Mike Vrabel. That's why. Now, that all being said, and look, I think Vrabel's a good coach. I've said this. I think he's a good coach. I thought it was time for him to go. The Week 7 Patriots-Titans game at Nissan Stadium, juicy. When I saw that, I'm like, that might not be too early for Brian Callahan to get fired. If I was Brian Callahan, I would have gone to the league office and given them whatever they wanted to not have that game outside of the first month of the season. Like no October, no November, no December. Put that game in September. Because if it's week 2, Amy's not going to fire him. Week 7? Oh, it could get him fired. The truth is while the Patriots will be favored in that game, and as of right now, the New England Patriots are favored by 1.5 at Nissan Stadium against the Titans. It was a real vomit fest last year when those two teams played. Granted, Gerard Mayo was the coach, and I don't think Gerard Mayo could hold a candle to Vrabel. But the truth is, and I don't know if the Patriots still have fans or not anymore, or if those were just bandwagoners and they're all gone, but there's going to be a lot, I would assume, of Patriot fans at Nissan Stadium for that game. There's probably not going to be that many Titan fans there because, again, we're disgusted with watching bad football. But the hope for Callahan is that he can develop the young quarterback. The argument for Callahan is that he's really not a bad coach, but that Will Levis sucked, and that was it. And so with Cam Ward this year, I don't think we expect Brian Callahan and the Titans to go beat the Houston Texans right away. But Vrabel and the Patriots and Drake May, that's all hope and optimism and everything else. That's not an established quarterback or an established team. And Amy Adams Strunk not only fired Vrabel, but it was personal with Vrabel. Again, the article Diana Rossini and Joe co-wrote at The Athletic basically said, yeah, Amy was upset when Vrabel went to Foxborough and did it's not like this everywhere else, trust me. And then I asked Vrabel about it, and instead of Vrabel saying, no, I was just saying that it's great there because they won the Super Bowl, but we're trying to build that here, and we blah, 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 and we love our ownership, and he didn't do any of that. He didn't go to her and didn't say, hey, I didn't mean that personally. If Vrabel wasn't such an a-hole, he would have survived 2023. Now, would he have survived last year? Probably not. But he would have survived 2023. So it's personal. And this was the Amy Adams Strunk handpicked guy to develop a young quarterback and to get us out of this just terrible Mike Vrabel situation. And if Mike Vrabel comes in here and kicks the crap out of Brian Callahan, he might as well start packing. She likes Brinker, but Brinker's already distanced himself from Callahan. Brinker wanted to get rid of Callahan when Rand got fired. So that we're already arm's length there. Borgonzi has said only good things about Callahan, but he's got no skin in the game when it comes to Brian Callahan. So week 7, that's personal. That's juicy. And the other thing too, again, the bookies are saying that Vrabel and the Patriots are going to be good. If they're good, and let's say New England rolls in at 5-1 or 4-2, and they beat the Titans, and so it looks like New England and their young quarterback that they're on their way, and you and your young quarterback look like you're not on your way, she'll fire him. It'll be like what happened to Matt Eberflus last year, where, again, that Thanksgiving Day game, it was Chicago. I mean, it looked like he couldn't coach, and it's like, well, what are we doing here? Go fire him so you don't ruin Caleb. That's what they'll say here. Steve in Clarksville says Callahan is 100% getting fired if they lose to Vrabel. Now, if they're 6-1 and they lose to Vrabel, well, okay, but that's also not likely to happen. I agree. I think if they lose to Mike Vrabel, and it looks like Mike Vrabel's going in a different direction, if she gets embarrassed, a la what happened when Malik Willis came in here last year with the Green Bay Packers, if that happens to Brian Callahan, he's done. I would make it a minus money favorite that he gets fired after the game. The great Mike Vrabel. It's just, but hey, I mean, isn't that kind of what you signed up for? You took the job and it's no, I can fix it. And then you make it worse. And now you're getting the number 1 pick at quarter. You better show us something. By the way, I'm going to have to go bananas about this at some point. I'm not ready to do a whole topic about this, but I may do it tomorrow. Easton Freeze covers the Titans for A to Z Sports. A texter sent this into the text line. Look, again, this is just, I just found this out like 10 minutes ago. So I guess somebody did a list. Starting to become list season here in May. Somebody did a list of the NFL coaches draft, and Brian Callahan was drafted last. All the first-time coaches are left off. Callahan's 27th. And Easton Freeze tweeted out at A to Z Sports, it's pretty obvious I think Brian Callahan is a good coach. But, of course, this is where he'll get ranked after year 1. How could you expect anything different? Somebody said, this is not a dig at anyone, but why exactly do you believe he's a good coach? This dude sent out a freaking paragraph because the primary thing he's supposed to bring to the table is a fresh and innovative offense. Is something you see many signs of on tape last year, was just consistently executed poorly by bad players and fatal positional flaws and insanely bad luck, Easton Free says. As for all the non-coordination elements of being a head coach, it's the context clues of those in and around him that convince me he's a good head coach. I know what it looks like and what it sounds like when a guy doesn't have control of their team, or when he's not respected, or when the veterans aren't bought in on what a head coach is trying to build, and you really didn't see any of that in year 1, publicly or behind the scenes. I saw it. I mean, did you not see it when Calvin Ridley, after the Colts game, bitched about not having enough targets, and he was targeted like 9 times? That is not a coach that has control of that team. Did you not see it at training camp when Jeffrey Simmons threw a punch and stayed in there and then went after Buck after practice? I'm sorry. If we're doing this, I like Brian Callahan. I think Brian Callahan is a good man. And I have no idea how Brian Callahan feels about me. I don't know if he feels like, that loudmouth on the radio, he's the worst, or if he thinks, hey, he's just doing his job, telling it like it is, and we need to win more. I have no idea. But I'm going to tell you, based on what I have seen, I am not convinced that Brian Callahan is a very good coach. And I go back to what I would have done if I were the Titans after the 2023 season, and that is I would have fired everybody. So I would have fired Rand, I would have fired Vrabel, I would have fired them all. And I would have hired a football guy, Thomas Dimitrov, Rick Spielman, one of these guys. I would have hired to be the, whatever you want to call it, president of football operations, GM, whatever. He'd been GM if it were me, because I believe in that, but I'd have hired that guy, and I'd have let him pick out the coach and everything else. They went a different direction. But when they were going through the potential coaching candidates, I kept saying, why is Arthur Smith not on the list? Like, what? I know Arthur got fired in Atlanta. I don't know what went down in Atlanta. That's Atlanta's business, not mine. So I don't know what happened. But I know Arthur can coach, and I know Arthur knows offensive football. And nope, you had to go for the shiny toy in Cincinnati. And now it's like, well, I can see the innovative offense. Yeah, Arthur had the innovative offense when he was here, too. It was second in the league. And he called the plays. 615-737-1025. We'll hit some more phones. 615-737-1025. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Now, I've seen signs of a good coach with Brian Callahan. What? What young player has gotten better? Who's breaking through under Brian Callahan? What have you seen that is anything but just pure lollipops out of Brian Callahan? The one guy that got better under Brian Callahan got better for the Green Bay Packers to come in here and kick your ass. Give me a break. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Also got some hockey thoughts from over the weekend to get into. We'll do that next. I'm Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
I think one of the things unique to my journey in this profession is I've done it before too. You know, I've been a part of a young quarterback, number 1 overall pick, coming into a team that picked number 1 for a reason. You know, and we weren't good enough last year, so we're picking first, and we have a chance to add a really good player with the first overall pick, whatever it ends up being. But there is a lot of things that I learned from that first lesson of when you bring in a player like that, that'll help us in the process.
That was Brian Callahan saying, hey, I've done this before with Joe Burrow. Yeah. Okay. I don't have a lot of confidence after watching the progress with the young quarterback last year. Let's go to Jared in Spring Hill. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, to that immediate point, Stillman, Will Levis looked like he knew how to play football when Vrabel was here. And I do want to go back. You were saying on your Friday show that whenever they fired John Robinson, that was the start of the spiral. But for me, and this is just a personal thing, and I know you was in full support of the A.J. Brown trade. I mark that as like the absolute end all or the beginning of the spiral. This is just to me whenever I'm analyzing this, because I was just really gutted by that. He was my favorite player, probably still one of my top 3 favorite players in the league. And I feel like that marks a great spiral for the Tennessee Titans just that night. It seems like we've been cursed on just about anything since then. Also,
you were 7-3 after you traded A.J. Brown.
I understand, but again, personally, I liked A.J. Brown. I think.
But how can you say you were cursed on anything Titans? Did you feel that way after they went to Green Bay and beat the crap out of the Packers on Thursday Night Football, and you were 7-3?
Did Treylon Burks pan out? Like, that didn't work.
He did in that Green Bay game.
Find a replacement? Have we found a replacement? I just didn't think that what they were doing would be sustainable. And I felt like A.J. Brown would have had.
So you thought at 7-3, you think at 7-3 when they went on the road to Green Bay and they won Thursday Night Football. Again, I have seen the movie Titanic, and I liken that to the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, have sex for the first time in the movie Titanic. Thank you, Jared. I look at that and I say that was the night that the Titanic hit the iceberg. That was the night. They were 7-3. They were in first place. They were on their way to the division. I remember Colin Cowherd the next day on TV saying, Tennessee, they squeeze every drop out of that orange. And then they lose 2 games, haul off and fire the general manager. To me, that was the moment. You lost every game in a row after that. It's convenient now to say, it was AJ. Because Treylon Burks is no good. But at that point, Treylon Burks went to Green Bay. He dominated that game. Nobody felt that way. And I think it's disingenuous for you to say that now, saying, well, did Treylon Burks pan out? Of course not. Treylon Burks sucks. But I think it's disingenuous to say it because you weren't saying it then. Like, I remember Derrick kept complaining about the roster on the midday show. Derrick was like, the roster's bad. The roster's bad. And I kept saying, if it's so bad, why are they up 24-0 in the first half on the Raiders? Remember, they got up big on the Raiders, like 24-0, 24-3 in the first half, and they won 24-22 on a failed 2-point conversion at the end of the game. They got up big twice on Indianapolis. See, I remember that Green Bay game like it was yesterday. And I remember that T.R. Tart got accused of faking an injury. Remember, Aaron Rodgers went over and said something to Vrabel because Aaron, would hurry up to the line. And so T.R. Tart, the Packer fans booed so that the Titans wouldn't let the Packers. And then Danico Autry got hurt, and they had to go to TV timeout to get Danico off the field. And I think Danico didn't come back until that last game against the Jacksonville Jags. To me, that was the moment that crushed that team that nobody talks about when Danico Autry got hurt. And again, the fallout from the Green Bay trip where Todd Downing got the DUI and now the NFL's investigating, and who knows. But to me, I look at that game as kind of the last night of the Titans. And that era and that window and that they had a shot because they were 7-3. They had gone to Green Bay and beaten Aaron Rodgers, the reigning 2-time MVP. Not the A.J. Brown trade. You can make a bad trade and overcome it. Green Bay traded Devontae Adams, who's better than A.J. Brown. They've overcome it. Kansas City's traded away Tyreek Hill. So give me a break. It's like people will say that the A.J. Brown trade is the worst trade in the history of the NFL. It's not even the worst trade of that offseason. The worst trade of that offseason, it's not even one of the two worst trades. The two worst trades of that offseason, Russell Wilson from the Seahawks to the Broncos and Deshaun Watson from the Texans to Cleveland. You cannot argue that those were better trades given what those other teams gave up. Give me a break. One texter says you don't get rid of good players. I agree. And again, it wasn't so much that I said that they should trade A.J. Brown. I mean, the Titans kept telling everybody they wouldn't do it. I understood when they traded A.J. Brown because I believed in the Patriot way at that point in time. Speaking of which, I have a confession I have to make. Like, I texted Chase yesterday, and I said, I have got a confession to make on the radio. I think I've got to do it. I think I've got to be honest with the people because I don't know what to think with something that I'm going to be honest, I did. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon with a buy one, get one free admission. Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon, where parking, tubes, and sunscreen are always free. Get this great deal now at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last. Still in the company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. I have a confession to make to the audience, and I'd like to think that I am an intellectually honest person when it comes to my relationship with you. While I have been talking constantly and have been obsessed with the Bill Belichick, Jordan Hudson drama. And let me say this, I have loved every single second of this completely avoidable, not that big of a deal when you really think about it, Bill thinking with his penis first story. And yet, I actually bought his book. So this all stems because Bill's got a book in which, in the acknowledgments, he calls Jordan Hudson his creative muse. And I said after the CBS interview, which was a disaster for Belichick, I said, I don't think anybody's going to buy this book. Like, these interviews don't make people want to buy the book, The Art of Winning. As Bill said in the CBS interview, he wanted to call it How I Did My Job. There was a review in the Boston Globe, says, don't worry about Deflategate, Spygate, Malcolm Butler, and Robert Kraft. They're not in the book. It's like, what's the point of reading about it if Belichick doesn't have anything interesting? And yet, as I was flying back from Costa Rica, my girlfriend and I, we thought we were sitting next to each other on the plane. We found out we weren't. And we had downloaded movies and shows and things like that to watch together on the iPad. So what am I going to watch these things without her? I mean, she honestly had picked most of those. So it's like, I don't want to start this and then get in trouble and anything else. So I'm getting ready to take off, and I'm on Audible, which I have a bunch of Audible credits. It's, the audiobooks. And I have a bunch of Audible credits, and I'm just looking for a book, and I got to pick one before we start to take off so I can download it and I can listen to the book. I will not buy books that are not read by the author. It's got to be read by the author. Like, I would have bought Al Michaels' book, but it's not read by the author. It's got to be read by the author for me if it's a famous person. Belichick's book came up. So I bought Belichick's book. Again, with an Audible credit. Now, I said that on Friday on the program with Corey Curtis. So that's not really the confession, because I'd already admitted to buying the Belichick book. The confession is that I actually find the book to be somewhat insightful. And so now I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to believe. Do I listen to this book with Bill Belichick just meandering about his coaching career and about the way things should be done in the NFL and say to myself, this is the greatest coach. This guy's won 6 Super Bowls. This was the guy who for years everybody looked at Bill Belichick and they said, he's smarter than you. He's tougher than you. You want to be Bill Belichick. That's why you hired John Robinson and Mike Vrabel. Because you wanted some of that Bill Belichick secret sauce. Or is this the Bill Belichick who has been exposed in recent years? Hasn't won anything without Tom Brady, ran Tom Brady off, hired a defensive coordinator to coach a second-year quarterback, got caught red-handed cheating during Spygate, and at this point in time kind of feels like the butt of every joke. I don't know how to feel. I am having a Belichick identity crisis. And I have been on the record in the past saying that at one point in time, I did belong to the church of patriotology. That I believe the Patriot way was the way to build your team, the way to build your program, and that doing things the Patriot way gets you Tom Brady. Whereas now, I believe that's nothing more than baloney, snake oil, and that they hit the lottery with pick number 199 in the draft. For instance, I don't believe the Chiefs are smarter than everyone or work harder than everyone or are more disciplined than everyone. I don't think the Eagles are smarter than everyone. They just take advantage of stupid teams like the Giants that let Saquon Barkley go. I don't think the Ravens are so smart. I think the Ravens got lucky with Lamar Jackson. So what do I do with this when it comes to the Belichick book? Do I stop reading it or taking it seriously? Because it does feel like the way Belichick was built up, like he was some sort of god when it came to coaching in the NFL, seems kind of phony. Again, carried by Brady, with whom, by the way, he loathed. I mean, this was almost Shakespearean, the way it went down in New England. The king, Julius Caesar, King Lear, the king who ruled the throne with an iron fist, who looked down on everybody and felt the threat of Tom Brady, decided ultimately to run him off because there can only be one sheriff in this town. And as all of those Shakespeare plays end, it's always with that guy being the one who dies in the end. Why? Because too arrogant, too prideful, too cocky, too condescending, too insecure. I recognize the reality when it comes to Belichick. As somebody who, again, thought Belichick was smarter, more disciplined, better, harder worker, everything. So do we read it and say, hey, Bill's a phony? Or do we read the book and say, hey, even though Bill Belichick does kind of seem like a hypocrite, no distractions. Here's my 24-year-old girlfriend. He still knows a lot more ball than a lot of people. Certainly than all of us put together. So this is the confession I'm making to the audience. I think Belichick, and I'm not going to say Belichick's entire career is a farce, but I'm going to say the way Belichick was built up, I think was kind of a sham. They got lucky when they drafted Brady. Bledsoe got hurt. Bledsoe had pissed him off, so he played Brady instead, and Brady is secretly, at that point in time, the Michael Jordan of the NFL. He got lucky. Anybody else could have drafted Tom Brady. Dick Rabine, who was the quarterback's coach at the time, was the one slamming the table, begging Bill Belichick to take Tom Brady because he believed in him. And Dick Rabine, unfortunately, would pass away from, I believe, a brain hemorrhage before the start of the 2001 season. It wasn't Belichick. I mean, I saw in the CBS interview, he was asked about Tom Brady, and he said, well, you know, Brady had great decision-making and accuracy. That's not why they drafted him. They drafted him because Dick Rabine begged him, and because Bobby Greer, the general manager that Belichick ran out, went to Michigan, and Lloyd Carr begged Bobby Greer, you've got to take Tom Brady. That's why. So I'm aware of that. Now, I mean, I just got into it with the caller in the last segment about John Robinson and but the one thing at that point in time, I understood the A.J. Brown trade because I'm like, if this is the Patriot way, this is how you do business. That's how they did business with Lawyer Malloy. That's how they did business with Richard Seymour. That's how they did business with Mike Vrabel. But at the same time, I now know that that was nothing. Bullcrap. Window dressing. Fluff. And I know Belichick's a hypocrite. And I know Belichick is being dragged around by his hee-haw as opposed to no distractions, do things a certain way, run the team a certain way, run the. I mean, he's turned North Carolina into TMZ. UNC to TMZ. And yet, when I listen to this book, now, the best thing that this book does is it puts me right, like on that flight, I listened to it. This is Audible. This is Bill Belichick's book. And it's like, I was out cold, which I did like. Actually put me to sleep the other night. But I'm going to say this. When I do listen to the Belichick, like, I find things he says insightful. So you tell me, where are we on the Belichick book? Do we look at the Belichick book and say, hey, it's the Belichick book, it's a big deal? Or do we look at it and say, Belichick? You guys tell me. 615-737-1025. That is the confession that I have to make to this audience. That as much as I've crapped on Belichick, as funny as I find this story, did you hear Pablo Torre said on Dan Patrick that he's got more information, including injectable erectile dysfunction drugs? I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't, it's crazy. Though I actually do have a hot take. I think that girl, Jordan Hudson, I think she actually loves Bill. Like, true love. But again, do we take the Belichick book seriously or do we not? 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. There's something Bill said in his book that I found insightful that I think we should think about when it comes to Cam Ward. I'm serious about that. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
If I had to pick one sentence that summarizes my coaching philosophy and how I evaluated myself in my job, it would be this: practice execution becomes game reality. My players have heard me say that hundreds of times because it is the absolute truth. When a player can execute a skill on the practice field against another competitive player with consistent success, he is capable of implementing that skill in a game. Conversely, if a player cannot consistently execute in practice, the chances of having a successful play in the game are close to zero.
That was Bill Belichick in The Art of Winning, the new book. That is the Audible audio version, where Bill Belichick saying, hey, if you don't do it right in practice, you're not going to be able to do this in the game. And let me say this. I heard that. I was driving yesterday listening to the Belichick audiobook, and I heard that, and I'm like, yes. This reminded me of last year when the Titans went out to practice against the Seahawks and looked like absolute crap led by Will Levis. And I kept saying, oh, my God, if this were a game and you all had seen how Will Levis performed today in practice, you would say Will Levis sucks. And the amount of people that were like, it's just practice, Jared. It doesn't matter, including the coach, who basically said that himself. I thought, oh, God. It reminded me of when Ryan Tannehill threw all those interceptions in training camp the year before he stunk and threw 3 interceptions in a preseason game. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. And it's like Belichick saying, I told the players, you want to be good in the game? Do it in practice first. They practiced, the Titans did against the Seahawks last year, and they did 1 2-minute drill. They ran one play in the 2-minute drill. It was a Will Levis interception by Devin Witherspoon. And I thought, okay, well, all right, blow the whistle, run it again. Nope. That was it. Good job, offense. Hit the showers. What? No, get out there and do it right. Drives me insane. So that's the first thing that Belichick said in his book. Again, I find it to be insightful, even though I think Belichick's kind of a fraud. And here was the second one about demonstrating success for confidence, because a lot of you tell me when it comes to Cam Ward, Jared, Cam has the confidence. You will see with Cam Ward. He's got the confidence. He's got what we need. I'm like, well, hold on. How can he have confidence? Confidence in what? He's never played a snap in the NFL. You think he knows for sure that he's going to be a star in the NFL. Here's what Belichick said in his book about demonstrating success and how important that is towards confidence.
Confidence is an epiphenomenon. It doesn't exist in a vacuum or independently of everything else. It's relational. And yet these days, confidence has become a product people think they can pick up off a shelf. I've heard it all over the years. Confidence at work, confidence in dating, confidence in everything. Come on down and pick up your confidence. No strings attached. Here's the truth. You cannot buy confidence. You cannot learn it. You cannot teach it. And you sure as hell won't get it from reading or listening to this chapter or this book. As far as I'm concerned, confidence isn't even something to strive for. It's something that you exhibit when you strive for something in the right way. But that's not very selling, so my publisher would probably prefer me to put it this way. I can't force you to be confident, but I can help you understand where it comes from.
Belichick then continued when it came to confidence, because, again, everyone's telling me, oh, Cam's got confidence. Cam, you'll see. You don't understand. Belichick's like, no. Like, what? Here's what Belichick said on football players and how they get their confidence.
Confidence does not precede action. It does not come before doing. It comes from doing. Not saying, believing, or hoping. Doing. Not hoping the other guy messes up or falls down. Demonstrated doing. A football player is not going to genuinely believe he can compete in the NFL until he does it in practice and then in live game action. Nor will his teammates or coaches believe that he can. He can fake it. Oh, can he ever fake it? But no one will buy it. You may perform well in a familiar setting, but what happens when the contingencies add up? If your confidence emerges under only the most special of circumstances, it wasn't confidence to begin with. Confidence is something that other people can see and trust.
I hear that and I'm like, that's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has that level of confidence. Why? Because everybody's seen Joe Burrow do it. When it comes to Cam Ward, you can't tell me that he's confident or that they're confident in him when they've never seen him do it before. He's never done it. If he's as smart as they say he is, then he is aware of how many quarterbacks that have been drafted number 1 overall have failed. And he's aware of the why. Now, he may be arrogant and think, I can do it no matter what. Everybody who I think has a little bit of confidence also has a little bit of arrogance. And that includes me, who when I got to a tiny, small AM station in New Hampshire, I don't even know how many watts it has. I don't want to rip on it because they were very good to me to give me my first chance. But I thought I was Colin Cowherd when I got hired in New Hampshire, and I thought I was going right into the Radio Hall of Fame on the first day. But then I realized it's going to be a little bit harder than that. Now, I believe that I have the confidence that I can host a radio show because I've done it for 10 years. And I believe that everybody else has that confidence because I've done it for 10 years. I've done it on Sirius XM and everything else. But again, you have to do it to have the confidence. There's no doubt that at some point in my life, I wondered if I'm any good. Sometimes I see some of the people that get some of the jobs and I'm like, those people suck. What? And then I lose a little bit of confidence. So when you just tell me with a blanket statement, Cam Ward has the confidence, Jared, and that's going to be what transcends him from this horrendous organization and takes this from the bad, awful Titans to the top of the league. He's Mahomes. Even though you don't want to do any of the things that Patrick Mahomes did. You don't want to sit him on the bench. You don't want to put better players around. You don't want to do any of that. You just want to send him out there and you want him to be Mahomes. That's just wishful thinking. And I listen to Belichick and I listen to Belichick's book and I hear him basically just throw a bunch of water on the gasoline fire of the sunshine and lollipops and rainbows and everything else. And I'm like, man, Belichick's kind of insightful. Like that book, it's kind of insightful. Like it's actually like, as a football person who doesn't want all the lollipops and rainbows, but wants to hear about football. And I say football person, I'm not a football person, but I'm a football fan. Like I am intellectually curious about how to build a good football team. I am intellectually curious about what is the best route. That's why I listen to people that make points that I'm like, man, Mark Dominic, the former general manager of the Buccaneers, made that point last year about Brock Bowers. And I said, well, but what about if, the Joe Alt's there or you got to take the tackle? And he said, no, you're taking Bowers. Take Bowers. And the more I talk to him about it, the more I'm like, man, I find this kind of insightful that, hey, let's get this star player and then figure it out afterwards, which is what he advised. And I look back on it, I'm like, that's what they should have done. And I think about stuff like that. Or I'm intellectually curious from guys who have failed. And I ask, why did you fail as a coach? Why did you fail as a general manager? Not because I want you to relive that failure or that pain, but because if you're going to be good, or if I'm going to be good, if I'm intellectually curious about wanting to build a good football team, then I need to know which pitfalls to avoid. But instead, everybody, they just want to put their hands over their ears and la, 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 and say everything else. And I'm like, man, like that is, whew. I mean, that is bad when it comes to just the way people think about football as compared to what reality is. One texter says, or the distinguished gentleman in the YouTube chat says, Cam has it. Again, try to do the Belichick voice, they're going to try to do like his book. You can say that all you want. But my publisher wouldn't like that very much because that might sell a book, but that's certainly not the reality of the NFL. I know Cam has it. Have you ever seen him do it? Have you ever seen him do it? No. You want to know what's funny? I keep going back to this on the Sam Darnold front. And look, I know you people are tired of me talking about Sam Darnold, and I am well aware of the fact that he's not coming to the Titans, and I'm not arguing that he should have. But the reason why I was so on board with Sam Darnold going into last year with Minnesota was because I thought he demonstrated that at the end of the 2022 season with Carolina when he went 4-2 as a starter after they benched PJ Walker and moved on from Baker Mayfield, and Carolina got back in the playoff race. And I watched those games and I watched him quarterback them, and I'm like, he played well. And so I knew that he can play quarterback. I knew he could play quarterback well. I knew he was going to a team with a good coach and good receivers, and they won 14 games. Because I had the confidence of him having done it before. 615-737-1025 here on the phone lines. 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. And I have one texter into the text line on the Belichick book. I do want to get, I do have a little bit of a review on the Belichick book. I might as well do it. I'm listening to it and I am enjoying it, even though, again, I think Bill's kind of a phony. We'll continue on. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Chapter 14, change. If you close your eyes and try to imagine the most challenging moments at your job, I bet none of them take place on Monday morning. How could they? Nothing has happened yet. You know what to do on Monday morning. You know the routine. You know who's going to be at the coffee machine at 9:15 a.m., who will want to talk about Sunday night football and their fantasy team, and what time to put in your order at Chipotle so that you don't have to wait in line at lunchtime. In football, we call that being at 1st and 10. It's the most common situation we have. Everything starts on 1st and 10. Every drive, every half, every game. No matter how bad your team is, you can't start any worse than needing 10 yards. And guess what? We don't spend nearly as much time as you might think on 1st and 10.
There you go. Just a snippet from the Bill Belichick book, The Art of Winning. Again, the one that has caused all this drama with Belichick and Jordan Hudson and everything. Again, that's a story I cannot get enough of. But as I said, I did buy the book and I listened to it on a flight and it put me right to sleep. And I have been listening ever since, and I find it somewhat insightful. Because, again, I'm intellectually curious about how to build a good football team. So one texter says, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, one texter says, oh, my gosh, how in the world did you listen to the audio book of Bill Belichick's book? He has the most boring voice I have ever heard. I am falling asleep on my way home listening to the snippets of it that you sent. So I decided today, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to listen to the Belichick book, and if we're going to talk about the Belichick book when we talk about the 24-year-old girlfriend and everything else, I might as well just give a review. Even though I do feel like I have this Belichick identity crisis where on one hand, I think he's kind of a fraud. And on the other hand, he did win 6 Super Bowls. So here's how I would review his book, which I did not get paid to review. He did not send me a copy of the book. I bought it with an Audible credit. Number one, it is so easy to fall asleep to Bill in the Bill monotone voice. It puts me right to sleep. So the one texter is like, man, I'll tell you, listen to those snippets, puts me right to sleep. On this flight, coming back from Costa Rica, going to Miami, I sat there and I was listening to the book, and I listened for a little bit, and I found it insightful, but then I just kind of, and sometimes with a book, that's not bad, right? Like when you're on a flight, you take a siesta because Bill puts you to sleep. That's not a bad thing. The other night, I have one of those little masks, like the sleep masks or whatever. And my girlfriend wanted to watch this TV show that I'm not interested in. And she wanted to watch it. And I was ready to go to bed. So I put on the little sleep mask and I listened to the Belichick book. And I right to sleep listening to Bill. It was wonderful. So that's the first thing. It's as good as melatonin and warm milk. Number two, I do think there's a lot of good info in there. Again, we played the cut earlier about practice. And I've seen Brian Callahan dismiss bad practices and say, well, the offense had a bad day because the defense is so good. And Belichick saying, if you can't show in practice that you can perform, you're not going to perform in the game. And that's just one example. For instance, he has a segment where he talks about the Belichick travel agency. Floyd had actually told me about this, not the quote-unquote Belichick travel agency, but that the Patriots have an advantage when they would go to the Super Bowl. And I'm sure the Chiefs have the same advantage because there's so much going on and so many tickets and so many hotel rooms and so many events and so many flights and so many that the Patriots had a system for how to do all this. And Bill talked about that in the book, saying, hey, I'm as, 100% football, but when we would win a conference championship game for 2 days, I would turn into the Belichick travel agency, and every concern about tickets and hotel rooms and flights and everything come to me. Now, at the end of 2 days, we're done, and we're moving on to the game. But for 2 days, let's get your family figured out. Let's get your room situation figured out. And I think those are things that a young coach like Brian Callahan, who at times has his head up his ass, could probably use to hear. Just because, again, Bill lets his girlfriend decide what he does now, as opposed to the way he used to do it with an iron fist, which seemed a little bit more respectable, doesn't mean that Jillian Michaels' diet book probably doesn't have good info in it just because she went off and ate a donut. Number 3, I kind of feel like Belichick is using the book to do a couple of things. Number 1, it feels like he's using the book to pay homage to Brady and maybe try to kiss and make up with Brady a little bit. There is a lot of Tom Brady this, Tom Brady that, Tom Brady love, the things that Belichick would never give Brady when he was the coach and Brady was the quarterback. And we know that eventually Belichick ran Brady off and then Brady lapped him. And I feel like the book is Tom, I want you to know how much I really appreciated you, even though in the time I never appreciated you. And secondly, it's used to completely snub Robert Kraft, who isn't mentioned in the book. Belichick, by not mentioning Robert Kraft, it's like the Titans not being in primetime. They're just telling you, you're irrelevant. Bill is trying to tell Kraft, you're irrelevant. You're not important to me. You weren't important to this. It was me and Tommy, not you. And I think Bill's mad because the documentary that Robert Kraft produced makes Bill look very bad. Robert Kraft fired Bill. And then, according to ESPN, reportedly, Robert Kraft told Arthur Blank, don't hire Bill. So if I was Bill, I'd be pissed off too. But isn't it kind of dishonest to talk about all the Patriot success and not include Robert Kraft in that? And then finally, Belichick, again, there's good info in this book, but I think he's such a freaking hypocrite. Like, there was a segment or a chapter in the book about mistakes and about how, everyone's going to make mistakes and nobody's going to make more mistakes than the head coach. And he gave an example of a mistake he made. Dan Klecko, who was a defensive tackle in the mid-2000s, was the example Belichick used. Belichick did not activate Dan Klecko for a Super Bowl against Carolina. And Belichick said that they were thin on the defensive line and it bit them in the butt. Now, they ended up winning the game, so nobody talked about it. But if they had lost, he would have forever blamed himself for not having Dan Klecko active for the game and not having enough defensive linemen, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here listening to this chapter about admitting as the head coach in front of everybody that you screwed up. And I'm like, how about Malcolm Butler? Can we get to that one? If you watch the Patriots documentary, all those players that were Amendola, Brady, Butler, everyone's like, I don't know why Malcolm Butler got benched. And Robert Kraft, the only one that Belichick at the time answered to, said that it was personal between Brady and Butler. I don't know what Butler did. But like, if you're going to write a book and you're going to write about mistakes and you're going to write about, shouldn't you write about that? So it does make it hard, again, to take this as gospel when I find Belichick to be somewhat of a hypocrite. One texter asked, was that Belichick or a generic AI voice? So I actually thought about this on Friday's show about playing a cut from the book and then saying, I think this might be the AI generic stuff. But then I wrote a paragraph as if I were writing my own book, and I put it in the AI processing thing, and it didn't sound anything like me. So I'm thinking that Bill might have actually read that. Vingan also texted me, by the way, and Vingan said, just listening to this passage from the book is putting me to sleep, and I've been in the car for 30 seconds. I'm telling you, nothing puts you to sleep faster than the Bill Belichick audiobook. Randy says, I bet Cam Ward will be another Marcus Mariota. You think? ? I don't know. I'm excited to see, let's see one way or another, but I'm worried that Cam is not as good of a prospect as all these other quarterbacks, and Cam's going to be competing against these other quarterbacks, and that bothers me to an extent. One person in the YouTube chat said, last Friday you were bashing Bill and now he's insightful. Seems to be a trend of backpedaling when you can use it for an argument against the Titans or a narrative you've been pushing. I'm just saying. And I'm saying to you all, I made a confession that I have been making fun of Bill and laughing about Bill and all the Bill stuff. And then I got his book, and I was like, you know what? It ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. For whatever it's worth. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I do have some hockey thoughts from the weekend because we got a lot of hockey and hockey news and hockey info and hockey. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 The Game.
Derrick goes after it. Pacioretty arrives. Ekman Larson tried to keep it in. Marchand and Brad Marchand, his 150th point and another goal in Game 7 against Toronto.
Marchand, quick little spin around. You know, the Leafs, they, as Elliott said at the beginning, have jumped over so many hurdles.
3 more for Florida. Convincing 6-1 lead, win. And the defending Stanley Cup champions move on to the Eastern Conference Final. And the song remains the same here in Toronto.
I was at a Canadian wedding last night. There were some NHL dignitaries in the house. And at the Canadian wedding, the dad giving the toast got up there and said, before I get up here, I just want everybody to know the Leafs are down 3-0. And everyone's like, oh. And let me just say this. At some point in time, my son, who is 5 months old, my son, and will be making his first trip to Canada this weekend, my son might have to pick between being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and a Nashville Predators fan. Now, I think he's going to be a Preds fan simply because, well, we live in Nashville and have tickets to the Predators. And yet, at the same time, you know, his cousins play hockey up in Canada and they're all Leafs fans and everything else. So who knows? And if the Predators don't win, then maybe it'll be hard for him to pick the Predators over the Leafs. But I felt like last night was a total encapsulation of the Toronto Maple Leafs experience. You know, it's funny because I was joking last night with people at this Canadian wedding. I was like, You know, it's funny. In Nashville, it's not as painful to be a Predators fan as it is to be a Leafs fan. Number one, we have other sports that we care about. Whereas there, they really just have the Leafs. Number two, it's not $800 to go to a Predators game. It's not. I mean, it's not cheap to go to a Predators game, but it's not like going to a Toronto Maple Leafs game. And so when you have to pay Maple Leaf prices, you have higher expectations. Justin Bieber's at the game. It's a game 7. They're paying their 4 forwards $1 gazillion between Marner, Nylander, Matthews, who never shows up in big games, and John Tavares. And so on Friday, the Leafs were up 2-0 to begin the series. And I tweeted out at the time, I said, I think this thing's going 7 because it was a war through 2 games. Florida wins the 2 games at home. I'm like, that's okay. Now the preliminaries are out of the way. Let's see how the Leafs do. And they get smoked in game 5. And I think to myself, oh, God, here go the Leafs. Then on Friday night, they win. It was a tough-fought 2-0 victory. It was a real game. I thought, damn, the Leafs, who never have the testicular fortitude to be able to fight, they showed maybe they'll win game 7, and then they choked. And that was a Toronto Maple Leafs performance if I've ever seen one. They are the Chicago Cubs of hockey. They may never, ever, ever win. That's the first thought. Number 2, Peter DeBoer and the Dallas Stars are back in the Western Conference Final. And just never forget this, that when the Nashville Predators were looking for a coach after they fired Peter Laviolette, Peter DeBoer had been let go by the San Jose Sharks and was available. And they were not interested because they decided to hire John Hines. Here we are 5 years later. John Hines is yet to have won a playoff series. Vingan sent me this text the other day. Peter DeBoer has appeared in the playoffs 10 times as an NHL coach and 8 times, including the past 6 seasons. He has advanced at least as far as the conference final. You could have hired Peter DeBoer, and instead you hired John effing Hines. Which takes me to my third point. The NHL is a league that is truly socialist. You know, the only advantage are places like Dallas, Vegas, Tennessee, Florida, etc., that don't have a state income tax as compared to Canada, which has a ridiculous tax rate. And yet the league, it's so tight. The margins in these series are so small. And the salary cap in the sport is real. And the only way to get superstar game-changing players, for the most part, is to draft them with the first or second pick. And yet, 3 of the 4 teams in the conference final were in it last year. Dallas was in it. Edmonton was in it. Florida was in it. And Carolina, who was not, lost in the second round last year, and they've been around. Which to me means that the difference for 3 of those teams, one of those teams has Connor McDavid, that's why they're there. The other teams, I think it might be the coaching. I think it might be Paul Maurice in Florida. I think it might be Peter DeBoer in Dallas, Rod Brindamore in Carolina. Vinga and I were texting this weekend about who are the best coaches in the league, and those were the 3 that we kind of came up with. I think coaching matters in this league. You know, the Maple Leafs, they've gotten close. They haven't gotten this close. And I think some of that's Craig Berube as their coach. I do think coaching matters in the NHL. For some reason, it does not matter in the NBA. I'm not sure how much it matters in baseball. Maybe a little bit. When to pinch hit, when to go to the bullpen. But it certainly matters in the NHL. And then finally, I see that the Milwaukee Admirals are on a playoff run. Again, do that on your own time, how they win, how they lose. I don't care about the AHL playoffs, and I'm not going to. But there's one thing that does bother me, is I do check the box scores of how these games go by, and the guys that are scoring in the playoffs for the Admirals are not guys who are actually going to matter for the Predators. You know, I was wondering, Matthew Wood, the kid they took in the first round a couple years ago, made his NHL debut. He did not sign a contract that allows him to go to Milwaukee, so he's not playing there. Well, if this team's going to pull their heads out of their tushies, it's going to be because of guys like him. Well, he's not there. Joakim Kimmel, who was a guy they took in the first round 3 years ago, he's not scoring. Instead, it's some 30-year-old named Jake Lucchini, who I've never heard of, that's scoring goals in the playoffs. They got defensemen in there. Again, I've never heard of. You know, they're playing the Dallas Stars AHL team, the Texas Stars. And again, I'm not excited about the Admirals, and I'm not going to tell you to do it or to not do it. Again, do it on your own time. But, like, you sent Fedor Svechkov down to Milwaukee to play in that, whereas everybody who's any good at all with a pulse in that Stars organization, aren't they with the Dallas Stars right now who are trying to win the cup? So I can't get excited about that one way or another. So those are my hockey thoughts from the weekend. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. You people, I have got to get to, because you people told me it was time for a change. And one NFL organization is saying, thank you, Titans. We'll get to that next. Tillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So, the Baltimore Ravens have signed Derrick Henry to a new contract. He had the press conference today. Mike Florio has the details at Pro Football Talk, saying, quote, he's still going very strong beyond his 30th birthday, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. It made the Ravens willing to replace the $8 million he was due to make in 2025 with a 2-year, $25 million commitment that has every penny fully guaranteed at signing. So it is a 2-year, $30 million extension, 3 years, $37 million contract. So basically what the Ravens have done is they said, we're giving you a raise in 2025. We're extending your contract through 2027. We're paying you for 25. We're paying you in 26. And we'll see about 2027 when Derrick Henry will be 34 years old. And I thought to myself, oh God, that's why they're the Ravens and you're the Titans. Because when this team wasn't winning in 2022 and 2023, I was told it was time to move on, Jared. You people told me it's time to move on. And I thought, over my dead body, I'm not moving. Derrick Henry? And while I don't think the Titans are a Derrick Henry away from the Super Bowl, I also don't think the Ravens, by the way, were a Derrick Henry away from the Super Bowl, and I still don't think that. I actually think Derrick Henry, and I've said this, and I really believe this, at some point the Ravens are going to be in these playoff games, and when the Ravens are in these playoff games, they're going to need, help passing the football, and Derrick Henry does not help the Ravens do that. And so when they get down and they're going to need Lamar to bring them back, I think Lamar needs a legitimate, bona fide, true ace to throw the football to. The way Donovan McNabb got Terrell Owens, and Derrick Henry's not that guy. But Derrick Henry is still, even in his 30s, the same Derrick Henry that he was when he was winning the rushing title here in 2019 and 2020, and that first half of the year where he was unstoppable in 2021. And you all kept telling me, no. He's slowed down. Can't you see it? I understand. Father time comes for all of us. But for some of the greatest, LeBron James, Hank Aaron, Tom Brady, it happens later. Especially the guys that take care of their body, which Derrick Henry always has. But the Titans had a new general manager, and he wanted to do things the San Francisco way, and they wanted to get a modern offense because I guess winning with Derrick Henry was no fun. And so they moved on. They were smart. You'll see, Jared. And now the Baltimore Ravens, a well-run operation that I believe, a well-ran operation, that I believe runs a modern offense, I think, has Derrick Henry, and not only are they happy with the job Derrick Henry's doing, they are giving Derrick Henry a massive raise and an extension because they don't want Derrick Henry to go anywhere. That's a good organization that knows what they have, that is appreciative of it, and isn't always looking for the grass to be greener. Whereas your organization had a good general manager, and you thought, well, we can do better than him. Had a good coach, we do better than him. Had a good running back, we do better than him. And you're now the worst in the league. Do you not see the correlation here? Do you not see what I'm getting at? And you people kept telling me that I didn't understand because I kept saying, look, they've got a 270-pound center in Aaron Brewer who can't snap the ball. How the hell is Derrick Henry supposed to run behind that line? They've got Andre Dillard at left tackle. He's awful. They've got Peter Skoronski, a guard with short arms who's never played guard before, at left guard who kind of sucks. How is Derrick Henry supposed to run behind this line? No, Jared, don't you see? He's not the same anymore. No, he is the same. He went to the Ravens, and he did everything that he did with the Titans. He ran for 1,900 yards last year. He led the NFL with 16 touchdowns. He averaged 113 yards a game. He had an 87-yard touchdown run against the Buffalo Bills, and he carried the ball 325 times. Derrick Henry, yards per attempt, 5.9, which was better than the 5.4 he averaged in 2020 when he led the league in rushing and ran the ball for 2,000 yards. But Jared, he's on a good team with Lamar Jackson, right? And that's why it's 5.9 yards per carry and not 5.2 yards per carry. But again, he was 5'1", 5'4" when he was winning the rushing title in 2019 and 2020 with the Titans. He's the same Derrick Henry. He's a freak. He's a cyborg. He's not human. And I'm not to say that Derrick Henry's going to run the ball with fury when he's 38 years old. Because I wouldn't give him a contract until he's 38, and the Ravens aren't giving him a contract until he's 38. But the Ravens, again, are saying, no, we'll do 31, 32. And we'll see about 33. Whereas the Titans, coming off of 6 wins, in which Derrick Henry still ran the ball for 1,100 yards with a 270-pound center and 12 touchdowns on a horrible team with no wide receivers. The Ravens are like, no, we'll take that. And I remember being at the Super Bowl and asking everybody, do you think the Titans should keep Derrick Henry? Do you think they're going to keep Derrick Henry? Do you think Derrick Henry was the one that went on Bussing with the Boys, and he said after he had met with Rand Carthon, after they had fired Mike Vrabel, he said, they're going in a different direction, and that's okay. That's okay that they've decided to go in a different direction. I'll go in a different direction too. But my guess is, if I was general manager, Derrick Henry would not have even been able to think about the idea of being somewhere else. I would have said to Derrick Henry, you are part of the solution, not part of the problem, especially if I'm trying to break in a young quarterback, which I was trying to do last year with Will Levis, especially with a team that has no leadership, which this team right now has no leadership. Even right now, breaking in Cam Ward, wouldn't you want him to hand the ball to Derrick Henry? But no. I didn't understand. In fact, this is a cut that I made in October of 2023 because I kept watching the games and I kept saying, Derrick Henry's fine. It's not Derrick. It's everybody around Derrick that is the problem. You don't have a right tackle. Your left tackle stinks. Your left guard had an appendectomy. Your center is 270 pounds. You suck. It's not Derrick. And I kept saying it. And yet here was Willie with his analytics. This was in October of 2023 saying, hey, Tajay Spears is better than Derrick. Play the cut. Do we have it, Reed? I'm going to guess we don't. Again, I want to play this cut because I want to highlight for you what people around here thought during the 2023 season. I didn't think this. I wanted to keep Derrick Henry, again, for more than anything, to value the leadership. Here's what Willie said in October of 2023.
Two things we always talk about with the stats, right? There's the eye test, and then there's the analytics. And how do the two meet? Then there's the analytics, which suggests that Derrick Henry doesn't break as many tackles as he once did. There's this new stat that people are developing called expected yards per attempt, right? They look at the play. I don't know how they come up with it, honestly, but it's like, should you get a good running back will get more than expected. An average running back will get exactly what's expected, and then people will get below. Derrick
How do
Henry
you
is,
even calculate that?
I don't know. Derrick Henry does not grade nearly as well in these categories as he did 3-4 years ago. Tajay Spears grades really well in these things.
Okay, so do we believe WilliesAnalytics.com, or do we believe now that we've seen Tajay Spears without Derrick Henry and we've seen Derrick Henry that, oh, no. The problem was Derrick Henry was on a team with no receivers, no offensive line, a quarterback with a bad ankle, or Will Levis. Because Derrick goes to a good team and he does absolutely everything after the age of 30 that he already did here. You don't get better by getting rid of good players. And I understand that in some cases, whether it's the owner not willing to spend the money, which I don't think was the case here with Derrick Henry, or whether it is, hey, we think that this young player or young draft pick that we're going to get in exchange for this guy is ultimately, I understand. Again, you can't keep everybody all the time. But there's just some dudes when it comes to building your football team that you do not get rid of. And Derrick Henry's one of them. And at every stage you could possibly have been at, breaking in a young quarterback, trying to reestablish a culture of professionalism, I believe Derrick Henry fits your team. I believe that if you're trying to win the Super Bowl, Derrick Henry fits your team. If you are trying to take a team that is a good team but make it a great team, Derrick Henry fits that team. And if you're a bad team that is trying to get its head out of the gutter, Derrick Henry can help get you there. But in the NFL, everybody wants to win their way. Everybody wants to win with my guy, my scheme, my philosophy, my quarterback, my play caller. And Derrick didn't fit. Whether it was Rand Carthon and what he wanted to do, which seemed like a whole bunch of gobbledygook, or whatever it may have been, you cannot convince me you're a better team and a better organization without Derrick Henry. And here are the Ravens, who actually were a step shorter than they were the year before. Because in 2023, the Ravens went to the AFC title game, and in 2024, the Ravens went to the divisional round. And yet they know what they have in Derrick Henry. They don't give out contracts on good teams. They don't just give out contracts for fun. They gave Derrick Henry a contract and an extension because they know how important he is to them and because they want him to know it. Not like here, where he had to get up to the podium and be asked about all the trade rumors surrounding around him, which we later found out were in fact true. But you people told me, no. Let Rand cook. No. Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears' analytics are better than Derrick Henry's. Sure. How much money is Tajay Spears making? Not $25 million, I can tell you that. 615-737-1025. The phone number 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. And then Derrick Henry asked if this is it. Because by the time this contract's up, he'll be 34. What he had to say, we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 105 the game.
What does it mean to you to kind of, for the Ravens to go and, commit to you for even more than, was last year as well?
I'm just very grateful for this organization. Just like last year, coming off the season I had, I wasn't really happy, and I wanted to prove myself and just get an opportunity, and they gave me that opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of how much they value me to give me an extension, and I just want to show them how much it means to me, how much this organization means to me by the way I work and what I do on the field.
There you go, Derrick Henry. What's it mean to you that the Ravens gave you an extension? Man, it means the world to me because they believed in me. I wasn't happy with the way I performed in 2023, but to have an organization with the way I work that believes in me, I appreciate that. Did you not kind of hear there? Like Derrick Henry, I think, said it was Dan Patrick or Rich Eisner at some point last year when he was asked about leaving Tennessee, if he thought he could be the same back that he's been in Baltimore. And he said, well, they didn't think I could be that back. You're the Titans. Who are you to be looking at Derrick Henry and thinking, we can do better than that? By the way, I would have given Derrick Henry a contract extension after 2022 because I believe, A, Derrick Henry is part of the solution, not part of the problem. But also people kept saying, well, Jared, what if Derrick Henry falls apart? What if Derrick Henry doesn't? And the Ravens are willing to guarantee years 31 and 32 for Derrick Henry. We'll see with this contract for 33. And then, he becomes a free agent at 34. Derrick Henry was asked today in his press conference if this was his final deal. And Derrick Henry said, I'm just focusing on this year. Not saying yes, not saying no. He's different. He's not the same. He's not. But this is what happens when you change a general manager and everybody wants to do things their way. Derrick Henry on a team that had Dennis Daly at left tackle, 270-pound Aaron Brewer at left guard, Ben Jones injured for half the season at center, P-freaking-T at right tackle, and honest to God, I can't even remember who the right guard was. Who was the right guard 2 years ago? I'm sure they had one. It escapes me. Nate Davis ran for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. You think you could just go get that somewhere else? Again, I know there's a certain part of me that's crying over spilt milk, but these are the things where I'm like, guys, I'm not worried about Derrick Henry not being able to produce into his 30s. I'll accept it. If I give Derrick Henry a contract and Derrick Henry struggling and he's running for 2 yards a carry, which he's never done in his career, but if that's what happens, then I'll suck it up and live with the fact that, hey, I wanted to invest in a 30-year-old Derrick Henry. Instead, you let him go. You got nothing in return. And he just ran for 5.9 yards a crack for the Ravens, who are now saying, yes, sign us up for 2 more years. He almost ran for 2,000 yards again. You just gave him away. It's kind of like the Cam Ward number thing. Cam Ward gets Warren Moon's unretired number. Nobody notices. Nobody says anything. Nobody points a finger because nobody cares about the Titans. Abdul Carter calls for Lawrence Taylor's number, and the entire country is outraged. How dare you? The Giants let Saquon Barkley go into free agency. He signs with the Eagles. He runs for 2,000 yards. He's the best back in the league. How dare you? And instead with Derrick Henry, it's like, oh, well, the Titans weren't winning with him, so who cares? I'm like, right, but, that's why you're supposed to build a team around them. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Gorilla is up next here on the program. Gorilla, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Bravo, Jared. I started listening to you around about 2:45 today. You were talking about the television show coming to Nashville. What is that? The behind the scenes deal with the Titans.
Hard Knocks.
Or with the Hard Knocks. Yeah. So you started from there, and I'm just looking at a pattern, right? And I got to say, man, this is an excellent show. So I went to my doctor's office, got out of my doctor's office, got back in the vehicle, and it's like you're almost through with that poetry. Man, we are a pitiful organization, man. We're just a pitiful organization all the way around the board. To just and it's like just capping on with the Derrick Henry deal. Nobody gets rid of Derrick Henry. Nobody gets rid of Derrick Henry. Where's that bum at now? Cook, because I was on board with the Cook, Carthon Cook deal. And didn't we get suckered? Didn't we get suckered by that? What is this ownership doing, man? I believe, I'm sorry, I don't mean no harm. I've met Amy several times. She's a wonderful woman, but I believe she's kind of, losing it a little bit, man. I watched her dad do the same thing, man. And I don't think there's a quick fix, Jared, man. But you awesome show, man. I hardly ever agree with you, but today I'm down with jumping in and kicking the Titans in the butt too today. Yeah. Yeah,
Did
you got him on the ground.
Didn't
I'm
you
gonna
call
kick him
in
in
2
the
weeks
chest.
ago? Didn't you call in 2 weeks ago yelling that I wasn't being as positive as everybody else?
Yeah, man. Of course I did, and probably gonna do it tomorrow. But I'm telling you, you're spot on, man. I'm telling you, you hitting it out the park every shot. I told you I left maybe an hour, 2 hours off from the radio, got back, and man, you were still at this Picasso. I'm telling you, this pitch is so beautiful. The pattern is it's there. Man, poor ownership, Jared. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. So here's my theory about when the Titans went downhill. And I don't know if this is spilt milk because Vrabel's gone and Robinson's gone and Carthon's gone. And, so many people have been fired. Derrick Henry's gone and Tannehill's gone. And, it's like that day is over and let's focus on this one. But here's what I truly believe. And I've said this many times. I believe when the Titans won in 2020, really from 2019 to 2022, everybody got arrogant. Vrabel got arrogant. He won Coach of the Year. You're lucky to have me. We ran through 90 players and ended up as the number 1 seed. Yes, but you also hired an offensive coordinator in Todd Downing who wasn't worth a crap and then kept him. Craig Aukerman, special teams coach, going for 2 against the Bengals, blah, blah, blah. I think Vrabel's head was shoved up his ass, and he became a real pain in the tush to everybody, including the owner and everything else. Robinson, I think hey, I took the worst team in the league, and I drafted Byard, and I drafted Henry, and I traded for Tannehill, and I signed Ben Jones, and I, again, thinking like, hey, I blew it on Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley, but come on now. Head up ass. And then Amy. Well, I know we're in first place, but it's not good enough. I'm not happy enough with this. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to be in first place. It's not good enough to win the division. It's not good enough to make playoffs 3 years in a row. And because of that, everybody got arrogant, and it led to destruction. And Derrick Henry got put on parole. That's what happened. Derrick Henry got a get-out-of-jail-free card. And he's making everybody pay for it. I truly believe that cut we played from Derrick Henry when he was like, hey, I'm just glad the Ravens believed in me. If the Titans had come to Derrick Henry after the 2022 season, Rand Carthon gets the job, goes up to Derrick Henry. And remember all the rumors about the Titans trying to trade Derrick Henry? If they had gone up to Derrick Henry and said, hey, let's do a 3-year deal, 2-year deal, something like that. You're the face of this team. And we're going to get ourselves out of this, led by you. I think you would have signed it. And then you could worry about building a team around Derrick Henry instead of this 1 foot in, 1 foot out, second-round pick on a young quarterback because we're kind of rebuilding. We're kind of not. But that was when everybody, again, put their heads right in their butts. And none of it was my fault. Amy looked at it like she didn't do anything wrong. Robinson probably looked at it like he didn't do anything wrong. He traded away A.J. Brown. Can't do that. Vrabel probably looked at it. I know Vrabel doesn't think he did anything wrong. Well, that's how you get there. Arrogance, pride, and really not knowing what it takes to win. The Ravens, no. More of your phones. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
two things we always talk about with the stats, right? There's the eye test, and then there's the analytics. And how do the two meet? Then there's the analytics, which suggests that Derrick Henry doesn't break as many tackles as he once did. There's this new stat that people are developing called expected yards per attempt, right? They look at the play. I don't know how they come up with it, honestly, but it's like, should you get a good running back will get more than expected, an average running back will get exactly what's expected, and then people will get below. Derrick Henry.
How do you even calculate that?
I don't know. Derrick Henry does not grade nearly as well in these categories as he did 3-4 years ago. Tajay Spears grades really well in these things.
There you go. That was Willie in October of 2023 with his analytics again. I love it. Caroline's like, how do you even calculate that? Well, it's like, I don't know. But Derrick stinks at it, and Tajay Spears is good at it. Yes. Because when Tajay Spears would run the ball on Derrick Henry's team was 3rd and 13, and Vrabel's trying to get out of there with a punt. And so Tajay Spears is lined up next to Tannehill in the shotgun. He takes a snap. He hands it to Spears. Spears gains 7 yards. Now it's 4th and 10. Out comes the punter, and Tajay Spears just gained 7 yards. And the analytics chart said, that's good. Good job. That's what happened. The Titans, when they had DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks and Ryan Tannehill and Andre Dillard and all those bozos, the problem was that everybody in the ballpark said, well, we just have to keep Derrick Henry from beating us. And it's the little context, the common sense context that I feel like everybody missed when it came to Derrick Henry, except for Peyton Manning, who was coaching the Pro Bowl team that year and was like, I think Brian Callahan needs Derrick Henry. That apparently was it. Chad says, Derrick was never re-signing here when it looked like we were rebuilding. It is such BS to act like we all chose not to sign him or something. First of all, the 2023 season was Derrick Henry's last year under contract with the Titans. Now, there was always the option to franchise tag him, which would have been very expensive because you'd already tagged him once, but you had the option. And if I was the general manager, I would have threatened Derrick Henry with the tag as a way to get him to sign an extension. But what are the Ravens doing right now? The Ravens are going to Derrick and saying, we value you. We believe in you. Again, I don't believe that Derrick Henry is the missing piece for the Ravens, because the Ravens were always good at running the football, whether it was with Gus Edwards or Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins or whomever. The Ravens were always good at running the football. And not only were they always good at running the football, their issue is that they don't come from behind well. And when you play in the AFC with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, you're going to get down in the playoffs, and Lamar's going to have to throw them back into the game. And Derrick doesn't help them with that. Now, the bludgeoning of people when they've got the lead, which they were already good at, well, Derrick makes them 10 times better at that. But the Ravens are coming to Derrick before this even becomes an issue. That's what the Titans should have done. But instead, the Titans wanted to move eras. They wanted to move on from Tannehill and Henry, which is fine. If Henry's not still in his prime, who moves on from a superstar like that? I guess the answer is you. And you should have gone to him after the 2022 season when, again, he carried your offense for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns and almost won you that playoff game against Jacksonville, or that play-in game. You should have given Derrick the contract. You know what's crazy? I think Derrick Henry's been this good his entire career. He was this good in college, and he gets to the NFL, and he sits behind DeMarco Murray. And in the second year, DeMarco Murray gets hurt, and Derrick Henry goes out there and runs for 155 in a playoff game and a victory at Kansas City. Then Matt LaFleur takes over as the offensive coordinator, and Derrick doesn't get off to a great start. And so now they're starting Dion Lewis and David Fluellen because, again, Vrabel, he don't know. And so they're trying to build this team, and then all of a sudden, Derrick takes off, and the Titans end up on the verge of the playoffs with Derrick Henry running for 1,000 yards in the last 4 games. And then Derrick Henry's the best back in the league, carries you to the AFC title game, runs for 2,000 yards, takes over the league before he breaks his foot. And again, 1,500. He's been the same guy the whole time. You've got worse. Let's go to Alan, who's up next here on our program. Alan, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
What's up, man? No, I just wanted to back you up, man. Whoever's texting and saying that they couldn't ever sign Henry anyway because we were rebuilding. Go back and watch that episode of Busting with the Boys with Taylor Lewan right before Henry signed with Baltimore. He already knew that's where he was going, where he was signing, and he said straight up that, he would have loved to stay with one franchise his entire career. He just wished they would have reached out.
So here's what I think happened with Derrick Henry and the Titans. Alan, thank you. I think, and I go back to that Bussin' with the Boys interview where Derrick Henry was saying, like, hey, it looks like they're going in a different direction, and that's okay. Derrick Henry had an entire year to prepare for his departure from the Titans. An entire year. Rand Carthon went to the Combine in 2023 and tried to trade Derrick Henry. Mike Silver reported it at the time, a veteran reporter, reported it at the time that the Titans were shopping Derrick Henry. So Derrick already knew. Then there were the rumors around the trade deadline. Then what came out, the Ravens have gone on the record and said, we had a deal for a 4th-round pick that could have been a 3rd. Now, Rand denied it, but most of us think Rand was lying. So Derrick almost got traded. Again, he told the boys on Bussin' with the Boys that it was close. So in March of 2023, Derrick knew they didn't want him back. Then he knew in November they were actively trying to get rid of him for the owner to say no. Well, a year later, you think he was surprised when they're like, yeah, we're going in a different direction? Let Rand cook. That's why Derrick was sitting there saying, hey, they want to go in a different, and it's okay. Because he had already made peace with it. Because he knew for a year that they didn't value him. I mean, I'm sure Derrick Henry, and he would never say this, never, ever, ever. I'm sure Derrick Henry was sitting there thinking to himself, these are ungrateful a-holes. I run for 1,000 yards with this horrible offensive line in front of me, with this joke of a general manager, with a Mayo pitchman at quarterback, and these guys think they can do better than they draft a running back in the 3rd round. That's like D Mace today saying, and I love D Mace, but he was sitting there today talking about, oh no, Derrick Henry wouldn't be doing what he's doing for the Ravens on this roster. Right. Because your roster sucks. But that doesn't mean that you need to get rid of all the good players on it and only have bad players. That doesn't make any sense. One texter says it's wild to me that D Mace said that Derrick couldn't excel on this roster rather than be upset that they didn't do anything to make the roster better to help him to succeed. D Mace made the argument today that he wouldn't have been the same Derrick Henry we're seeing in Baltimore. And my response is, again, this is the texter, whose fault is that? Because it's obviously not Derrick's fault. Just like it wasn't Derrick's fault at the beginning of the 2018 season when he wasn't running well. People were like, he had a talk with Eddie George, and that changed everything. Really? Because that talk came after he ran for 155 in the playoff game at Kansas City. It's unbelievable. One texter says it started with A.J. Brown, and that's when it went downhill. Again, they were 7-3 after they traded A.J. Brown. Was trading A.J. Brown a good idea? No. But it's not. Some of you guys make this out to be like the Boston Red Sox trading Babe Ruth. And the A.J. Brown trade was not that. 615-737-1025 here on the program. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and company. So I have to get this off my chest because I didn't watch the WNBA game this weekend. Reed, did you watch the WNBA game this weekend?
No.
I didn't watch the WNBA game. Reed didn't watch a WNBA game. But did you see what happened in the WNBA game, Reed?
Yes, I did see it. Unfortunately, I was force-fed WNBA from a prior stop recently, so I am on a WNBA fast, no matter how great Caitlin Clark may be.
Is that Outkick or is that Whitlock?
That's Whitlock.
Whitlock's obsessed with the WNBA?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And Caitlin Clark.
Well, especially for the identity politics.
Mostly Sophie Cunningham, if we're being honest. That kind of propels his obsession.
So here's what I'm going to say when it comes to the WNBA game over the weekend. The commentary is absurd with what some of the people are saying when it comes to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and everything else. And I'm sure at some point this week, there will be something that pushes me over the edge, though the Ryan Clark thing. So Ryan Clark said that RG3 apparently doesn't have the right perspective because RG3's, again, I don't want to take anything out of context here that I haven't heard for myself, but I guess Ryan Clark said that RG3 can't have an opinion on this or doesn't understand or whatever because he's married to a white woman, which is just, it's ridiculous. It's not black versus white with Angel Reese. Again, it's pick a side for any polarizing rivalry. More people have picked Caitlin Clark's side. Why have they picked Caitlin Clark? I don't know. I find Angel Reese to be obnoxious. You win the championship and you run your finger right in in Caitlin Clark's face. That was a conscious choice that Angel Reese made that everybody saw. But here's the real point I want to get to, which is this. I don't even know if Angel Reese is really that good of a basketball player. The reason Caitlin Clark fouled her is because they'd rather her shoot a free throw, which they're not sure she can make, than her shoot an uncontested layup. Caitlin Clark is freaking Superman out there. She's the Larry Bird of women's basketball. Is Angel Reese really Magic Johnson? I don't think so. But at the same time, when it comes to these two, they're rivals. And when there's rivals, you pick a side. Duke, Carolina, pick a side. And I just don't know when this all became, well, if you like Caitlin Clark, you're racist. I don't know when that happened. And I also don't know. Either Angel Reese, who doesn't want to answer questions about Caitlin Clark, who doesn't want to be either Angel Reese has to understand something. Just like the actor who played Lex Luger in the Superman movies, Lex Luthor. You have to understand the reason you got that part in that movie is because Superman is the hero. If you're Angel Reese, you're popular because you are the villain to Caitlin Clark. Period. That's it. So either embrace it or tell everybody you don't like being the villain and move on. But not this, oh no, two people made women's basketball famous. No, one person did. You're a supporting character. And be happy that you're the number one supporting character, but recognize. And again, I'm not even sure Angel Reese is actually good at basketball. 615-737-1025. I have no idea why I just gave out the phone number. That's it for us. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow, too.